So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, whenever you listen. This is Match BD alongside my critic combating crime, Ricardo Medina,
Hello, hello, hello.
and the one and only CC Lilford.
Howdy.
And this is another episode of Retrospect Reviews. And it's funny that it's, the three of us together again because the last time that we spoke was for a particular movie, from our boy Spike Lee called The Five Bloods. And in that review, we mentioned a particular film called Dead Presidents. And we're like, we need to be back up to talk about that show. Because yes, folks, Dead Presidents is turning 25 this month. This is the second feature film from the Hughes Brothers. That will be Alan and Albert Hughes. And, this film in particular is quite interesting because, so before we get into all that, just to kind of keep things a little current, just want to make mention quickly the untimely passing of Dennis Hall, aka Sprangalang. For those who don't know, he is a Trinbagonian comedian. Actually, he died at age 71. And the funny thing is that we heard this fake news report come out saying that he was dead now, and then people went up online. I was wondering what's going on, and then it was like, no, he's fine, and then about a few days later, it's like, yeah, he's actually dead. But just to talk briefly, he is a comedian that I pretty much was familiar with from childhood. Just seeing him in commercials on TV in the 90s. He would put out these comedic takes on soca and soca parang and stuff like that. And he just always kind of tried to stay relevant. For me, in the 80s and 90s, that was when he was incredibly prevalent. For us in Trinidad and Tobago, we knew him from the Diana Powerman's ads that TV6 still shows. Even though these ads are 20 years old now. The eyes are smoker and all the kind of thing.
Daddy Lal's ads.
Yes. Lal's Hardware. That was the first ad that I grew up, that I saw him in for the first time, on local TV, right? But you could say pretty much in the last couple decades, he wasn't as prominent as all that. But, I knew in the back of my mind that he kept, just kept doing what he does best, just really trying to contribute to our culture, basically, right? So, so I know people, in terms of theater arts and film who have met him. Once again, this is another, personality that I've never met before. I know it's just something that I just will always regret. But I know it's just, for me, it's just probably just timing, just not being in the right place. But, his music will live on. His comedy will live on, I should say. I don't know if we're going to see these Diana Powerman ads in the future going forward. I don't know. But the point is that, the man has left his legacy on not just comedy, but, Trinbagonian culture as a whole. So, not much more I could say. Rest in peace to Dennis Hall, a.k.a. Sprangalang. Ricardo, anything you want to mention quick about it?
Yeah, he's one of my top tier local comedians. One anecdotal story I can tell you about him is I saw him in a taxi, and I was in the taxi with him, and he wasn't doing anything, and yet I thought that was hilarious for some reason. It was just so silly because I just recognized him. And then while he was driving, a construction worker just yell out "Spragalang" at the top of his voice, which was funny. He just had a great comedy intuition. Just truly hilarious. All of his music is the truly classic stuff. Roti and egg, peanut butter and turkey leg.
Bring drinks. So I will never forget when that song dropped for I think it was Christmas 95. I think it was either before or after 95 though, but that just dropped like a meteor, literally. That just blew up. That made our Christmases basically from that point on. But go ahead.
It's truly it's a loss. It's a big loss. His brother died recently, and so it's
Tony Hall.
Right. So it's all of that thing. So it's something we miss. But again, 71 is a good innings, so I can't be mad at that. So
Right. So just wanted to get that out of the way, folks. So we could jump into the review proper, right? Well, actually, before we jump into the review, just want to just kind of mention our histories with seeing the film for the first time and with the filmography of the Hughes brothers themselves, right? So I will kick things off basically with like, well, when I first saw when I was familiar with Dead Presidents, actually was around the time when the movie came out, right? I saw the ad on local TV, and it just seemed like a really interesting film, right? But it was '95, and I was young, and I was still like almost close to leaving primary school, basically. So I never got around to seeing it, right? But later on, I learned that the guys behind that film, the Hughes Brothers, they also made a little film called Menace to Society, right, which was their
Right.
debut feature. And well, Ricardo and I, we actually reviewed that in an early episode of Retrospect Reviews, right? And I personally dug that movie. I think that movie is excellent. It's a classic, hood movie. Very edgy, very dark, very violent compared to like what John Singleton, the late great John Singleton, did with Boys in the Hood, right?
Right.
And just the way how they showed the rawness of the hood, though. It shocked people back then, and it still has that power to do that. But it was socially conscious as well. So it really shone a light on, a side of that community or the hood itself that you don't really hear about, really, right? But, from that movie alone, you saw the energy, you know what I mean, that both that the Hughes brothers put into their films, right? So when I finally got to see Dead Presidents, that was on local TV, um, I was like, yes, okay, I'm finally watching this for the first time. And, honestly, like there were a few moments that took me aback. I'll get to those when I get to the review itself. And I was actually surprised at like how the film itself played out because, when you saw the trailer for it, you're thinking it's about this robbery and it's all centered around this robbery and it's gonna be that, right? So it's a robbery film. And it's funny too because like a year later on we had Set It Off, right? Which was about
Right.
robberies basically, right? So yeah, so when I saw this for the first, I was like, okay, but this is not about robberies; it's about more stuff in it now. But I'll get to that in a bit. Um, but even then, as it was local TV, I mean, the language was censored, right? So I finally saw it uncut, and I was like, oh, okay, that's what's going on, right? So just to run through quickly the rest of their filmography, right? They had a documentary called American Pimp, which came out in 1999.
Right.
I honestly didn't even know it existed till like years after. I still haven't seen it though, so I don't know if it's good. In 2001, they had a sort of a well, it's what it was basically was a graphic novel adaptation. This would be From Hell,
Right.
which starred Johnny Depp, right?
Right. Yeah.
No, I always forgot that they did From Hell. That's always the one of their films that I always forget. I need to see that one. I know it's based on an Alan Moore
Right.
comic,
Yeah,
and I know it's one of his adaptations. I don't hear people are like debating whether it's good or not. So I don't know. People don't really talk about that one. Everyone talks about V for Vendetta or Watchmen, but not From Hell. I don't
Right.
know.
yeah, From Hell, yeah. Well, for me, I remember seeing it on cable, and I won't really say that I enjoyed it though, but there were some good things about it. I just felt like,
Right.
okay, it was appropriately dark. It was very, very dark and grim, right? But I just felt like, okay, what's the aim of this, right? Because it's about Johnny Depp's character. He's trying to hunt down the Jack the Ripper, but you're not sure if it's really like portraying, if it's really about society, well, British society at the time. In other words, is it trying to be a mystery? Is it trying to be a horror? Is it trying to be a drama? Is it trying to be all three at the same time? I'm not sure, right? So I just kind of came out of it like, all right, it was all right. And honestly, I just never got around to watch it again, right? And then, well, 9 years later, we had the Book of Eli, which I remember,
Right.
Claude, that was in your top 10 favorite movies of the decade.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
Right. Yeah.
yeah, and that for me was when I was like, oh, okay, right it back because remember this is like a 9 year gap, right? I mean, I'm not saying that they haven't made other films in between that time, right? But they're back right together. And honestly, I saw it in theaters, and even though it's not the most perfect movie I've seen, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I mean,
Oh
Denzel
yeah.
Washington's performance, the whole post-apocalyptic desert future, which of course is
Yeah.
new, but the way how they showed it was pretty cool. Gary Oldman made a
Yeah.
great villain, in my opinion, and I just love the whole aspect of it being centered on the Bible and the power and the influence of the Bible and how people can use it for nefarious purposes, or it could spring some sort of hope. You know what I mean, in darkness, right? And I just love that, and the twist at the end. I dug it. I know some people were like, "Ah, that's impossible," but I actually do believe that a blind man, if he has all the time in the world, could memorize every single line and passage and verse in the Bible and be able to
Right.
say it out before he dies. I could believe that, right? So whatever.
Yeah.
But
It's
yeah,
after,
I thoroughly dug that movie.
it's after the
That-
apocalypse. What else has he got to do?
exactly.
I know, right? Yeah. So that's to round things off, right? So the thing is, like both like Alan and Albert, they did separate films. Like I remember Alan did the Defiant Ones, which was this great miniseries on Dr. Dre and his rise to becoming becoming one of the most influential producers in like music history, right? And that was on HBO actually. That was a really really solid miniseries. Albert did Alpha, which I
Right.
never got around to watching at all.
Yeah, I
I
never
heard,
got around to seeing this.
yeah, I heard good things, but I heard some so-so things about it as well.
Right.
And let's round things up too. The thing is with like their filmography is that they haven't really put out a lot of films since they started in '93, which is weird. You know what I mean? So
Right.
together, as the two brothers together, they put out 5 films in total, right? Which is kind of weird because, like I see, look at when they started, right? And I don't know if it's some personal thing, like maybe they just don't want to work with each other, or they have different needs, or just different, goals in mind, or whatever. But it's just kind of weird that they haven't put out a lot of films, right? So yeah, when it comes to this movie here, it's like, okay, well, what do we have to compare this to? The Book of Eli from 2010, From Hell from 2001, you know what I mean? So there's not really much to go with, right? But yeah, I'll explore that later on. But Ricardo, if you don't mind, just tell me your history with Dead Presidents and the works of the Hughes Brothers.
Yeah, I don't know. I saw this on cable like later. I didn't know it at the time. I don't know who the Hugh brothers was at the time. I saw, I already got familiar with their material a little later, like around sometime in the mid 2000s, and then yeah, Book of Eli came out. I was a big fan of that. Um, that's pretty much it. I mean, it's like, oh yeah, it's the guys who did Menace to Society and blah 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 blah. And yeah, it's one of these films that don't really stick with me all that much because, and I'll kind of get into that in my critique of, the the film itself. But it's one of
Yeah,
those movies that just come and kind of go on for me and don't really stick with me. But thinking about the time and then the what they're trying to reference in the movie gave it a rewatch. Like, all right, okay, I can see why this kind of it doesn't hold up all that much, but like it's still a solid film. But yeah, we'll talk
yeah,
about that.
yeah, yeah.
Right.
All right, CC, your history with with Dead Presidents, and just ask the question one time. Have you seen the other films from the Hughes Brothers or not?
My first Hughes brother movie was The Book of Eli, and I saw that
Right.
a few years back. I had been fascinated with it because I was going through I was going through like just looking at a bunch of post-apocalyptic movies, and I mean, it looked good. I checked it out. I loved it. I mean, I put it on my top 100 of the decade. Um, really stellar. And then of course, checked out the rest of their films. I have seen Alpha, which is
Right.
interesting. Like the thing about Alpha that's really weird is it's one of those movies that I was following the production because they said, Albert Hughes is doing a caveman movie. And I was like, oh, this looks really interesting. And I followed the production, and that movie was delayed by 2 years. Fun fact.
Oh,
Like,
okay.
yeah, because they like it was made. There was some kind of production issues, and then the studio sat on it for several years, and then finally gave it a very limited theatrical release, and then it kind of went straight to the Walmart bargain bin from there. Which is an absolute shame because it's a really good movie. Like as far as caveman films go, I still my favorite is still Quest for Fire by
Ah,
Ivan.
yes, yes, yes. The
But I
classic,
would
which features a then unknown Ron Perlman. I believe he was in that, right?
oh yeah,
Oh,
and
yeah, yeah,
the one dude from Twin Peaks, Ray Dong Chong, yeah, really great film. But Alpha
yeah.
is in a similar caliber, and there's a lot of ways in which it picks up from Quest for Fire as far as like how to tell a prehistoric narrative like this. And so then earlier this year, I actually got the chance to check out Dead Presidents because I was in LA and the film school I was at had a pretty big DVD library, and they had it, so I finally got to check it out. And I really, really dug it. I mean, I will get into all of the things about the movie that I love when we get to talking about it proper, but I really dug it. And then of course, partially agreed to do this so I could have an excuse to revisit it all these months, all these
Yeah.
films later.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you very much. And like it's really good. It's rough around the edges.
Yeah.
It falls into a similar. I feel like it's not like as far as the two of them, it's not quite as good as Book of Eli in my opinion. But it's a really solid. It's a really solid effort from the two of them. I need to see Menace to Society, and I'm curious about From Hell. Alan Moore adaptations are fall into either. I don't know how Alan Moore adaptations always all seem to be either V for Vendetta or League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, and there's no in between really. Like they're all either really good or really bad.
Yeah. But Alan Moore hates all of them.
Oh yeah. He just hates everything at this point. Like at this point, he's become old man shakes fist at cloud. Honestly, like
I mean, just look at the dude, right? Look at him, right? But as you mentioned, Menace to Society, all I will see without spoiling it is that you'll be looking at Lawrence Tate in a different way, because like in our case, we saw him from Menace to this. And it was odd. So in your case, you're like, oh, I didn't know. Oh, Lawrence is kind of scary too. It's kind of weird. It's kind of weird how his trajectory was, between those two films, though. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But just to kick off the review proper, right? One film that I had in mind while I was watching this, and it's funny because this was a movie that I wanted to cover, considered covering for Retrospect Reviews, was a little movie called Desperado, which came out in 1995 as well.
Right.
Yeah, second feature film from Robert Rodriguez, right? And what I mean is that, yes, this movie here is, the sophomore effort. So it's like, okay, finally Hollywood sees their potential and they give them a ton of money. It's like, all right, do what you want with this. Make,
what can you do?
A movie that means something to you, but at the same time, you kind of have to get butts in seats, right? So for me, without going into like my thoughts on the film directly, I feel this is like a issue that the movie has, where it's like, all right, we want to tell the story which is really true to us and true to people that we know, but at the same time we had to kind of entertain the crowd now. We had to wow them. We have to give them all these thrills and explosions and squibs and all that kind of stuff, right? So it's that kind of balance and act that you see throughout this film. Right. Anywho, so to kick things off, right? So so just to start off with Dead Presidents, right? One thing I always forgot about this movie is the score, which was done by Danny Elfman, right, of Batman and Batman Returns fame. Yeah. That I'll tell you is like they get a budget. They get people to work on this film, like real top tier people. That's like, what? Okay. And also too, in terms of the score itself, right? It's very at least for the team for the movie when it opens, it's very dark, it's very unnerving, kind of intense at the same time too. I really dug it. And in terms of us going in, because of the market fit, it involves this robbery. So all right, so to the movie's credit, they do show you a little glimpses of the pre-robbery moments now. Because, from what I remember from the film and all these things that happened in the film and the robbery being, at the technically the last thing in the film, it's like, all right, well, how do we start this film? But at least to the movie's credit, they do kind of show the characters getting ready. They have the infamous white face paint, which I always loved seeing, especially from the marketing for this. It was something about how it looked though, with the the white with the black underneath. There was something really dope about that.
It's a very striking visual. It's a very striking visual. I can't think of any other movie that I think of when I see that. Like you see the images of them ready for the robbery with that face paint, and you're like, Dead Presidents. Like it's very recognizable and iconic.
Yeah,
it is. Yeah, it is. It is. In truth, right? Yeah. And as far as the opening sequence go, it's very, very effective in terms of just seeing like this close up of like dollar bills being burnt, right? And it
Yeah.
almost feels like it's just kind of exposing something that's more or less being hidden, or doesn't want to be shown. Like something about, like, I just kind of saw it as this sort of critique on American society, that we're just gonna peel all the layers and it's gonna show you all the filth and grime underneath, right? And well, of course, with the Elfman's music in the background, it just makes it even more striking of a intro, right? So I really dug that.
Right.
So our film opens in 1968. We're in the Northeast Bronx. um the first person that you hear in the movie is the boy Chris Tucker.
Oh Lord.
Yep, he is in this
Welcome for
movie,
hating him, your
folks.
boy Chris Tucker.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. And it's almost like he jumped off the set of Friday to work on this. 'Cause he sounds just like Smokey. He has the same
Yeah.
mannerisms like Smokey. He's talking about like, what you doing out here so long? It's cold as a motherfucker. He like
Right.
it's him. It's him, right?
He was at the peak of his popularity at the time too. Between
Yes.
that,
Right.
was
Yeah.
this before or after Fifth Element?
This is
This is before.
before.
This
Okay.
Fifth Element is 97.
Yeah.
So Fifth Element, which would be the kind of moment that I think we were kind of tested on how much we liked this guy. Like,
Right.
Yeah, so we're introduced to, well, okay, so Chris isn't the main character, of course. This would be Lawrence Tate's character, who plays the role of Anthony Curtis, right? And there's another guy, this Hispanic guy, his name is Jose, who's played by Freddie Rodriguez. I forgot he was in this movie.
Yeah.
Like, okay, so in this movie, it have like
A lot of
it
character
have
actors.
actors,
A lot of character
yeah,
actors.
character actors where you're like, wait, you in this? Wait, you in
Yeah.
this?
Yeah.
What?
I forget.
Okay.
It's only where the Vietnam sequence starts. It's like, oh right, okay.
Oh yeah. We gonna talk about that Vietnam sequence
Yeah.
in a bit, right? But yeah, they basically working as milkmen. Well, they're young clearly, and they're talking about, well, when I leave high school, you know what I mean, what we're gonna do next. And basically, Chris Tucker's character, who plays Skip, he's talking about, well, he's gonna go to Hunter College. He
Right.
makes out Hosea saying, you know what I mean, you look like the type of person that an army recruiter will just pick up one time. Like, hey, you're gonna come with us to the army, right? Anthony, on the other hand, he's not really sure what he's about. He considers, college, but it's like, I
Right.
don't know. He's attracted to the Marine Corps. You know what I mean? So I like that in the, like, just in the beginning of the film, it kind of sets up, what's going on. And also,
Yeah.
just want to get this out of the way, though. The soundtrack for this play.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Full confession, I think the soundtrack kind of overpowers Elfman's score, because I remember Elfman's score from the opening with the montage with the money and the opening credits. But
Yeah.
the rest of the movie, if you asked me about certain scenes, I'd be like, oh yeah, that's the one where that Marvin Gaye song plays, or the one where you
Yeah.
get that. Like, it's kind of like a Scorsese, like early Scorsese, where instead of a like proper score, it's a soundtrack of songs back to back to back to back to back.
Right. Yeah.
That's what it reminds me of.
Yeah. And it's a good thing that you bring up Martin Scorsese, because he is a clear influence in this movie. Way clearly they're pulling they're drawing influence from his his earlier films. But really, I was thinking more like Goodfellas in a sense, in terms of how the characters kind of get darker.
Yeah,
and,
it's a kind
their
of
life now.
yeah. Because this film I kind of think of is a hodgepodge between Goodfellas, and then I like to compare it to a film that came out, big Vietnam War film, Forrest Gump.
Oh yeah.
Yes. You're right.
Yeah.
Where it kind of starts off here and then it suddenly.
Right.
As a matter of fact, in terms of the transition, which I'll get to in a bit, it very much feels like Forrest Gump. I think it's coincidental, but yeah, you're right.
Right. Well, that's the thing. I don't think it is. I think it was like almost directly influenced, because there's a lot of America critique, America conceit stuff. History of America. Commentary stuff on this with the narrative. So I don't think it's a coincidence at all. It was literally 1 year prior. So
yeah, true. Well, true. I mean, the movie did win Best Picture, so yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
So,
it's not. It would be surprised if they saw it in theaters. If the Hughes Brothers saw the theaters, love it, and say, "Hey, we want to do that scene." Anyway, so later on, just stick with Anthony for a bit. We see his love interest. Her name is Juanita, who's played by Rose Jackson, and we
Right.
see her. Well, basically, she has a little sister. Her name is Delilah,
Right.
who is played by forgive me if I get the name wrong. The
Unbush.
Bush, right?
No,
Who
Unbush it.
oh, okay. I was always get that name wrong. Forgive me,
Right.
right?
Right.
And
She is she's in, well, if she, a couple years later, well, a few years later, she is going to be in the first Blade.
yes,
Oh,
yes. That's what I
right.
always remember her
Huh.
from.
Right.
You use me as bait. That's her. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So basically, a few months later, now we see Anthony running numbers, right? And the guy that he's working for is Kirby, who's played by Keith David. And the
The
funny thing
one
is that like in
only.
the mid 90s, when we were introduced to a little show called Gargoyles, aka one of the
Right.
best, probably the
Yeah.
best non-traditional Disney character-based shows, cartoons,
Yeah.
sorry, ever made. Yeah, I mean that was when I was introduced to Keith David. I was like, oh my god, this
Yeah.
guy's voice is awesome. And then later on,
Yeah,
him
Admiral.
and Spawn, and
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Yeah. Admiral Anderson himself, right? So.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
I forgot that too.
Spawn
Yeah,
on the HBO series at one point as
Yeah.
well.
It's Spawn. Spawn. Yeah.
yeah,
And then two different John Carpenter films, The
Right.
Thing and They Live.
They live. Yeah.
yeah. Yes,
Right.
yes.
Yeah.
Oh boy, they live. Classic.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah. Right.
so right, so it's Keith David, and he works out of this pool hall, and just the way in terms of just his character, right, with this other guy alongside him, Nicky, I believe his name is. You know, you know that the guy,
Yeah.
it's he's sleazy. You know what I mean? He just kind of does his thing on the low. He has a peg leg, and we learn later on he got that
Right.
after serving, in the Korea War and all that kind of stuff.
Korean War.
Korean War,
Right,
sorry,
him and-
yeah, and
Yeah, so they do make allusions to previous wars, because between him and
Yes.
then the dad as well, well, Anthony's dad also was a Korean
Yes.
War vet.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
They
Yeah.
also the judge at the
They
very
make
end.
allusions to these things, and just, well, he was in World War II. But
Yeah.
the idea of these kind of sketchy, morally gray kind of wars that really show you're supposed to be part of. They had a similar thing, because for many people the Korean War is a forgotten war.
It is.
You
Yeah.
It's not the one that anybody's remember in the public culture. How many Korean War movies you have, right?
I can't even name any.
I think
I
one
can't
with
even
Robert
count it
Mitchum.
with my hand.
There's one
Oh,
with
Robert Mitchum was in one.
Yeah, I don't
Right.
remember what it was called.
Exactly. So it's not something that but what they get into is just that kind of feed off camaraderie aspect of things now, in terms of sympathizing with them, and it have a kind of interesting closer brotherhood amongst veterans now, with that Korean veterans versus Vietnam veterans, similar geographies, we should say, right?
Right.
The film had that layered into it, but because, and again I'll get into my critique of the film, we didn't really, that didn't line up as well as it could. But anyway, we continue.
Yeah. All right. So, speaking of character actors, I didn't know was in this show. We see a young Terrence Howard in this too,
Yeah, for real.
and my word, he's doing the same southern accent that he does
Yeah,
so much. in all the shows.
real scumbag it is.
Yeah, boy. I'm like, dude, why you moving like this, Jack? So basically, he comes in and he just kind of acts like he owns the joint. He kind of picks on Anthony
Yeah.
for a bit, and then
I know-
Kirby's like,
so
oh
he's
well,
so-
challenge him to a game of pool, now, you know what I mean?
Yeah. He's so unnecessarily antagonistic. I don't sound like,
Yeah.
like chill out there.
You know what I mean?
He's
like
very
he just
challenged
like
by
kind of
people like
yeah, he just like wants to pick a fight with everyone.
Right.
Everyone.
Yeah. Yeah, what you said there, Cece? I didn't hear him.
No, I was saying he's very antagonistic toward this kid who's just out of high school.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, but so basically, so Kirby more or less bet that Terrence's character, his name is Cowboy, can't beat Anthony at a game of pool, right? Of course,
Yeah.
Anthony washes him, and Cowboy is like, all right, well, he drops $2, just $2, right? I see that's for Kirby. It's like, all right, but Anthony's like, all right, well, cool, well, I beat you though, so where's my money? And of course, Cowboy responds by punching him in the face. He pulls out the switchblade. He's like about like trying to cut him and all that. Kirby picks up on him and more or less kicks him out of the pool hall, right? So another show I was thinking about while I was watching this, right? That remind me of, although it's a movie that I saw years ago, I don't remember much of it. It's a little movie called A Bronx Tale. I don't know if you guys have heard of
Right.
that.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Right.
Robert De Niro's
Yeah.
film. And it has that whole I'm a kid growing up amongst these tough guys, so they are like my father figures, and it's just
Right.
him kind of growing up with these guys around. But it's to the point that he gets in the wrong side of the law, and he looks to this guy. So in case of this movie here is Kirby as his father figure now, and then where's the dad? Dad's not even calling him out on it. Basically, so it has that kind of feel now. I mean, this kind of dark coming of age vibe to it, But there's a nice little father figure moment afterwards, after the fight, right, with Kirby and Anthony, and basically it's Kirby more or less complimenting him for how good he runs the numbers, and he talking about how not to tell his parents about the side hustle that he's doing, right?
Right.
And then Kirby's like, "Hey, let me go on a little run." You know what I mean? What do you mean a little run? Just a little run, dude. Like, wow, you know what I mean? So he's like, "Yeah, come true, man." And I'll give you the chance to even ride my car. You might have a nice Lincoln Continental. So I'm like, "Oh, okay, Kirby, like real cool," and like allowing him to drive and stuff, right? But in my head, I was like, "Okay, this is, Goodfellas 101 here." You know, when they say they're driving up that place, some shit gonna go down, right? And basically what happens is that they park at P Daddy's Rip Shack, right? So Kirby's like, keep the motor running. And in my head, I was just thinking, yeah, this is GTA 3 all over again. Leave the car running, we go inside, you hear doom, 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 then they run out. But basically what happens is that, Kirby just goes Wayne Brady on the owner of this place. And he just sort of beat him up though. And he's like, asks him for, he keeps saying he wants his gold back. He doesn't say money. He does say he wants his gold, right? Even the man's daughter comes out trying to help, and she get slapped in the face. Like, it's dark, but it's kind of funny at the same time.
Her. He doesn't slap her. He punches her.
Or punches her. Yes, he punches her. Right. Yeah. And there's even a funny moment though where Kirby leg get pulled off in the fight.
Right.
And my leg talk about, you know I got a bad leg. You know I got a bad leg. Almost like, why? It's almost like he's saying, why would you pull that leg for? But he's saying it like, you know you was going to pull that one anyway, right? So it's kind of funny. So afterwards they run out, they jump back in the car, speed off, and in true Scorsese style, hearing some dope music throughout it. I forgot the guy who was singing the song there, but yeah, all throughout this movie, you just hear some great soul music, just from the greats. You hear the Al Greens, Marvin Gaye's, the James Browns. You just hear a lot of them in this movie.
What I love about it is that it does a similar thing to what Scorsese does in his Who's Why. It reminded me, but it's all of the era. So like when they're in the 60s, it's all like, big hits of Motown of the 60s and a bunch of other different groups and everything like that. And then we transition later when we do that, when we move forward in time, we have like the soundtrack that changes to more Marvin Gaye, Al Green, Isaac Hayes, and that transition.
Yeah, that more slow, quiet storm kind of music. Yeah. Which I love, by the way, but I'll get to those moments in a bit, right? So in the car now, Kirby talks about he good thing he didn't use his gun on him, right? And he places this gun like right alongside Anthony, right? And the way the camera lingers on it, it could tell, this is the first time that Anthony's seen a gun, right?
Right.
Yeah. So back at Anthony's home now, we see in his family, the mom, if I'm not mistaken, she plays. I remember her from the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. She plays one of Anvil's sisters.
Oh,
okay. Right.
Yeah. You remember there's always this loudmouth sister that always comes in and is like, "Oh, Hillary, why?" We like always kind of.
Oh yeah.
What does she do? I think she always kind of criticizes Uncle Phil. I think that's what she does. Yeah,
right.
She always does. Yeah.
No. She does play. Your mama, your black mama, right through enough movies. I mean,
yeah. But yeah, and basically, well, oh yes, and also Anthony's older brother is there, played
Right.
by Isaiah Washington. I didn't even know he
Right.
was in this.
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah.
He's only in
what?
the scene.
Yeah, yeah, like he's hardly in the film too. It's like, wait, you in this too? I mean, but I love this scene basically because it's basically the whole what you're gonna do when you finish high school, right? And Anthony mumbles, "Join the Marine Corps." It's like, what?
Right.
Say you're gonna join the Marine Corps, right? And then basically he tells his parents he just don't want to go to college, he just doesn't care. But I love how before that they were talking about how his brother got through with this financial aid program, the
Right.
college, right? So it's like, yeah, be like your older brother and all that kind of stuff. But and he's like, no, I wanna join the Marine Corps. It's like that, right? And of course, the mom, is pissed. She reacts. She leaves. The older brother's like, "How can you be so stupid, right?" But what's
Right.
interesting though is the father just sits down there, and he's aware of what's going on, right? But
Right.
in the argument, well, you talk about, well, what about dad? It'll be dad for the career, right?
Right.
Um, and then, well, when everybody kind of leaves and the dad is there, well, the Anthony and the dad is there, the father says, I'll go talk to your mama, and that's
Right.
it.
Exactly.
So just to
Right.
talk about
Exactly.
his character briefly, right? Just before you get to your thoughts on him. Um, while I wish that there were more moments on the father where he actually spoke more, because he hardly says anything in the movie. It's
Right.
interesting that he's all kind of quiet about his son going to another war, going to a war. Sorry, it's almost like he knows what it means to be a soldier. He has that pride with him.
Right.
So it's
Right.
just like,
Exactly.
well, yeah, I mean, he wanna follow in my footsteps. So go ahead, But
Right.
I wish that the movie explored that a little bit more. I thought that was
Yeah.
a really interesting contrast
It was.
to what his mom believed. I don't know if you guys have any agreements with
Yeah,
that.
this was the kind of the missed opportunity I felt the film had, which was exploring that dynamic a little better of Korean vet versus potential Vietnam vet at that point, and
Right.
then him becoming after the fact we come back now. Because the scene we'll talk about a scene later involving another dinner table scene, and that
Yes.
the tone and mood of the whole situation. I felt the film could have just focused on these moments a little more, but they had other shit to do and they kind of was rushing. You get that feeling.
Yeah, yeah,
Just that. Yeah. Anyway, so
yeah. Cece, anything you want to weigh in on
all
with
the little
the
things I was
role of
thinking
the
about.
dad in the film?
Although I agree that it's one of the more like there's a what I love about the movie is that there's a lot of stuff going on dramatically, and the one weakness of it is it doesn't really pick a particular thread to
Right.
focus on.
Right.
It's more kind of like a more general thing, but the dad character is interesting. I do think that it's interesting that both of Anthony's father figures, Kirby and his actual dad, are both Korean War veterans. Like that's something they could have
Yes,
pulled on
yes.
and expanded on a little more because I feel like they were kind of implying
Hmm.
that's kind of where his desire to go and be a soldier instead of going to college and all that. I think it's clear that that's where that comes from, but they don't really expand on it uh,
Right.
super a lot. But it's a
Yeah.
great sequence. Like that whole dinner table scene is well paced, it's well shot, it's
Yeah.
it's it's tense when it needs to be, and then there's that quiet moment of understanding when they're just by themselves, and then he says to his dad, like, I wanna be like you. You said that being in the Korean War made you a man. Like I want that opportunity, and
Right.
I'll go talk to your mom.
Mm.
Like there's that quiet moment of understanding, and I think it's one of the best executed sequences. I think. Well, that and then it's brother scene, which the other dinner scene, which we'll talk about when we
Right.
get to. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But into the movie's credit, right? Like maybe the Hughes brothers were trying not to be as melodramatic as say John Singleton, you know what I mean, like a Boise Hood kind of thing. Like, they would
Right.
have that
Right.
moment where you hear, the music swell up a bit, a little jazz in the background, and you have that father-son talk and all that kind of stuff. So
Right.
maybe
Right.
they were just trying to avoid that, I guess, I don't know.
And it's very
But moving on now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry?
It's played very grounded.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah, it is. It is. So now we get to graduation night 1969, and just little reference to Menace to Society here. I felt this scene in particular, or at least the sequence, where the camera follows just a bunch of people inside this house,
Right.
just enjoying themselves after graduation and having a party,
Right.
some soul music playing. It's very reminiscent of early scene in Menace Society involving Samuel Jackson. Yes, he's in this movie as well, so it's a flashback,
Right.
and you see this house party going on, and a bunch of people doing stuff, and also it has this red tint to everything, with the light and whatnot. It has a similar feel. That's what I was saying. Of course, we see, Kirby and Anthony and Skip there. They're smoking weed, just having fun. Skip just going off, with the usual Chris Tucker way talk about. They have a great line where he talk about how he gonna be a pimp, and we see about how he granddaddy was a
Right.
pimp and he was a slave was a pimp. It's like it's just Chris Tucker just let him loose. I just have him see whoever comes to mind, though.
Yeah.
But I love that they just give you enough faith to be like, okay, stop right there. You're being a little too annoying. Stop. They just give him enough to be like, all right, this is
Right.
this is fun, right?
It's funny.
Yeah. Also, we learned Jose got through, so he's going to the war.
Right. Well,
And
he didn't get through. He was drafted.
well, he was he was dragged, sir.
He mentioned he actually says that he thought that Skip jinxed him because it's exactly what
Right.
Skip had predicted was going to happen. That someone
Right,
fixed
yes.
1A material.
Right. Yeah. He got
Yeah.
drafted. So.
And one little thing that I felt was really interesting, even though they don't explore it that much, but I actually really appreciate the film for touching on it. The idea of, before I go out to war, we're gonna get married, right? So basically, it's to this Latina called Marisol. So just that whole idea that we going out to war, but we gotta get married, right? Before I even do this, I thought that was interesting. The film would touch on that, right? Also, Anthony runs into Juanita. Eventually they leave the party. They go by her place. And one little blink in the missing moment, though, that I didn't like. It's only later on in the show where it kind of reverberates. I really thought it would. Is when when Juanita's going into her room, right? Because they're about to have sex, and Delilah is there and she's listening to James Brown say it loud and black and I'm proud.
Right.
It's like, okay. That's clever. See what you're doing there. That was some great foreshadowing there, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But I love that, afterwards, right? Basically, Anthony mentions to Juanita, how Jose is getting married, right? But she's saying, well, best I get married to you too before you leave, because I don't know when I'm gonna see you. But Auntie's like, no, I don't think we should do it now. And I like that. I like the idea that he doesn't want her to use this marriage as some sort of chastity belt. So, she should just stay, as is until he returns there, you know what I mean? He's reasonable like that. I like that.
Which is interesting because it's the way his character changes, that he says that then as a young man, but then later when he's back, like it feels very different. Like he says all the I don't want you to remain chaste. I want you to live your life, and then maybe we can get married when I get back. But then when he gets back, as we will get into, his tone about all of that is very, very different, and it's one of the interesting ways they show his character has changed. One of the other things I like about this sequence is it's not done like a typical sex scene. Like what I like about it is, instead of it being like, they could very easily have done this as like a montage and then like slow music, a lot of like close shots, blah blah blah, and then cut to them afterwards talking. But it's implied that both of them are losing their, like, this is their sexual debut, both of them that night, and so it's done very clumsy. Like there's all the mistakes, there's the people trying to figure
like the unhook the bra and
like there's a whole
you have toilet paper in underneath tucked in your bra, that kind of thing now.
Yeah, that, and there's that whole thing, and then like the different speeds, different rhythms. There's the bit when they're going, and then it shows that they're rocking the wall between her and her sister's room, which was funny. Like it's done as a deliberately kind of like, these are still like they're just out of high school. Like it is very natural and very clumsy and very first time ish, which I think
it's one of those coming of age moments.
It's really good that way. That's why I appreciate it. I really appreciate it for that.
Yeah. Also, well, the morning after, right? They have. I had to see that. I had to see that. They have a moment that really reminded me of boyhood. The mom coming home early, so now they have to sneak. Well, now Anthony has to sneak out. He has to jump through the bedroom window and all that kind of stuff, right? So
Right.
yeah, it reminded me a lot of boyhood. With
Yeah, the
with
mother came home. She came home early, right? Yeah.
yeah, they came home early and stuff like that, right? So yeah, and then like you're thinking, okay, this is just typical, um, black film. I mean, you have to have moments like that, but I love the fact that it leads to this brilliant, well, what will lead basically this brilliant transition, which starts off
Ooh.
with Anthony just jumping over jumping over fences, sorry, and running
Yeah.
on top
Right.
of cars or whatnot, right? Just running, and then it just transitions into him in the middle of the Vietnam War itself. I love like how sonically it sets it up though, because you're just hearing
Yeah.
explosions and you hear like com radio, and it just kind of leads into that, and I thought that was really brilliant, right? So yeah, basically now we get into 1971, right? He's in the war right now. He's in recon basically, and let me talk about Bokeem Woodbine for a bit, boy.
Right.
So for me, I always remembered him being in the movie. Like for the first time I saw it,
Right.
and it have a moment involving him that when I saw it for the first time and they showed it on TV, it kind of take me back though. 'Cause I was like,
Right.
well, for one thing, I didn't know this level of violence was in this movie. For one, and
Yeah.
Right.
They
I
cut.
didn't know that local
Okay.
TV would have shown it, or
Right.
at
They cut.
least
Right.
have
Yeah.
that scene. I was like, wow. So yeah,
Yeah.
it did admittedly get under my skin, but seeing it again is just like, yeah, how best to really sum up the horror of war, how psychologically could mess somebody up with that moment. But I'll get to that in a bit, right?
Right.
So I like so right. So basically he's a fellow soldier, right? Alongside Anthony, right? His name is Cleon, and basically he just hates Vietnamese. What he likes says early on is God don't like digs. So I was like, oh okay, this
Right.
wow.
Yeah.
Jeez,
Woof.
right? And we and just to touch in terms of like movies being referenced here, there's some apocalypse now worship
Yeah.
in this
Oh
Vietnam War
yeah.
sequence. Like, numerous moments where it's like, yes, we love Francis Ford Coppola's masterpiece. Let's do things that he did in this, right? So case in
Platoon,
point,
I think. There's also
Right.
definitely an
yes,
element
and
of
Platoon
platooning
as well.
here too.
Yeah. You're right. Yeah, Platoon in terms of uh, the whole innocence of war and, well, lack of
Yeah.
innocence, sorry, in war basically, right? Yeah, you're right. But yeah, you get the moment with the explosions and the architect the sort of temples basically being blown up, in the process and all that kind of stuff. And then we get this great shot, right? So it's after the air support drops us the bombs and whatnot. You see this camera like just padding this tracking shot basically, and you just see it. Well, first off you see friggin' Skip in this, and I like that you just see him. He's one of the, well, you see a soldier first, and then you see Skip there. It's like, oh, he's in the war as well too. Look at that, ha ha ha!
Yeah.
Right? All this
Right.
talk about going to Hunter College. Look, he's there too.
Right.
And you also see Anthony as well. You see Cleon as well. Oddly enough, you don't see Jose, but we learn later on what happened to him, right? But basically, we learn later on that the mission was compromised, and Cleon insists that, oh, well, we need to search, the dead soldiers for documents, right, for
Oh
intelligence and all that
god.
kind of stuff. And
Right.
then we get that moment that
Yeah.
really got under my skin the first time, though.
Woo.
Basically, where Cleon beheads a dead soldier.
Right.
And the way how it's framed though is like, yes, the body is propped up to a tree,
Right.
and you just
Right.
see it you see Cleo with his machete just chopping at it
Right.
though. But still
Right.
the effect
But
is there.
yeah, because you very frame it as if, wait, he chopping down the tree, and then it's like, oh, shit, right?
Yeah. And to the movie's credit, even after the aftermath of something so bloody and graphic, right? Chris Tucker's character could still make a scene funny. Like, what the hell, man? He already did.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? It's just
Right, exactly.
how he says it. It just makes me laugh there.
Oh,
Then
yeah.
they had the moment that I remember basically, and that is, well, Bokeem Woodbine holding a severed head thread.
Yeah, you just
I don't know, something about that just stuck with me. Like, for years, like, I just never forgot that. Then, well, for me, see this thing on local TV and thinking, oh, we wouldn't show stuff like that. I mean, I saw, I was like, wow. You know what I mean? But yeah,
Well, I know.
guys,
Oh, yeah. Like, one of the things about the Hughes brothers that makes them good action directors, and I'm thinking about Book of Eli, is that they're really good with with violence and gore. Like,
yes,
the way they
yes,
frame violence. One of the things about Dead Presidents that makes it so shocking is that we go from the whole, they're all these high school kids and they're thinking about what their futures are going to be. And then not only do we cut to Vietnam, but Vietnam, like, we haven't had any violence in the film up until then. And the film, any tension in the film has almost been comedic. And then suddenly we're in Nam, and now we have severed heads. Now we have, people getting blown apart and their intestines hanging out. Now we have, like, guys with, like, male genitals getting stuffed in their mouths and things like that. Like, it's
Exactly.
it's
yeah, yeah,
visceral. It's absolutely
Yeah.
visceral.
yeah. Ricardo, any thoughts on
Yeah,
Bokeem's
yeah.
intro in film?
Right. You basically have a shrunken head ward, right? It's
Oh,
got this
God.
borderline. Yeah, this borderline. It's borderline, almost kind of voodoo culture, almost, right? Or at least the stereotype of what we think voodoo culture should be, right?
Yeah,
It's strange how that sequence played on. Like, he could have a whole movie about him because he just plays out so strangely throughout the film, especially what happens what happens coming down to the end. Because they keep mentioning he's son of a preacher man. He's this, but
yeah,
he have all these super, like, mental issues now. And, well, they kind of imply that, well, they were having, this was their second tour, so he was there a while now.
yeah.
'Cause he was there from since pretty much, well, I forget when the Vietnam War started exactly, but he was there since '65, I think.
Right.
Or something like that. So I can't remember if it was that. I had to go back and just listen to the actual dialogue, but he was there a while. But yeah, that was just, so it was. I completely forgot he was in this movie, actually. So the ending I remember about him, but I was like, oh yeah,
Yeah,
right. This
yeah.
was like this complete mental patient moment, because it doesn't really come back in any strong way later down. But I'll get into that of again, where I have issues with the film. But yeah, go ahead.
Right. But when you think, okay, he just cut the man head off. All right, he just gonna like throw it on the ground or something and just walk off, and people just kind of watch him like, God damn, he put it in his bag, dude. And then,
Yeah,
well, points
He
for the line
carries it
that he
around as
says,
a trophy.
yeah,
yeah,
because
yeah.
early on, one of the guys takes I think it's some dog tags or something like that, and say or something like that, something similar to that, and says this is gonna be my souvenir. So Cleon is like sorry about that, just like you, sir, I'm collecting me a souvenir. I love that.
God damn.
Now there's something incredibly dark about that line, but it really does work. It really does work. Right.
Uh,
So go on, sir.
no, I was also thinking that it's not just that he takes it in that moment. Like, as the whole Vietnam bit goes on, we find that he's just been carrying it around, and it starts to look nasty, and it starts to
Oh, it
smell, and he's
does.
just
Yeah.
carrying it around like it's nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. We're gonna get to that part in a little bit, right? So the next
Because it's
scene
basically
now,
like a kind of, well, to
what?
him, he said it was a good luck charm.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. That was real funny though. Yeah, he does say it's a good luck charm. But yeah, in a later scene now, we have this nice convo with Anthony and Skip. They talk about, well, Jose got sent back home with a hand injury apparently. Also Juanita's pregnant. She had a daughter. And then Anthony, we call him Lawrence for now, right? So he channeled a bit of his old dog persona from Men's Society. He's talking about he don't think about the family or the world in this war.
Right.
He don't care about
Yeah.
anything or anyone, because the second he does, he's a dead man. Like, jeez, man, like, what did war do to you though? But in a way, I could
Yeah.
understand that kind of mindset. You don't want to appear soft, because the second you do, it's lights out, right? So I really dug
Yeah.
that moment. And then we have a moment where Anthony is doing this, like he's writing a letter to Kirby, which is kind of funny because he doesn't write. Well, he stopped writing to Juanita, but he still writes to Kirby, right? So it adds to that whole father figure thing, and I actually like that the film doesn't forget about Kirby. You know, I think like any moment, like any war, it's all about the war, but not about the people back home. So I really dug that. But basically, here we get this voiceover narration slash montage of violence. And yeah, it's very much like, Apocalypse Now, the way how it's edited, the superimposed images, the freakish imageries and violence and all that kind of stuff. Even the way how the voiceover narration sounds like, it's very much like Martin Sheen when he's on the boat, we running through Colonel Kurtz's walkway and all that kind of stuff. It reminds me a lot like that. Like,
Right.
that kind of vibe now. You even have like near the end of the scene where you're just seeing like one image on top of another. There was one image which was this monkey, I think it was. And when I was thinking about that, I was
Yeah,
just
what
thinking
the
like
heck?
the beginning of
That was always,
of Apocalypse
that was always
Now.
Yeah, what the
Right.
heck?
Yeah.
I'm watching this scene and I'm watching this very serious montage and this thing, and then suddenly
And then
there's a
there's a
monkey
monkey.
pose, and I'm like, wait, what the hell? Wait, what the
Yeah.
hell?
And it's like in Apocalypse Now, like it work where you just saw all this weird imagery, but it comes back up near the end of the film, right? It's like okay, and the way how it's all put together reminds me like the intro where we see Martin Sheen in the hotel and
Still in
he's taking
Saigon.
for fight, yeah, Saigon shit. You know what I mean? Like that moment, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, you know what I mean? Yeah, if there's one thing about the show here, yeah, the Hughes brothers clearly wearing the influences on his sleeves, but like
Oh
you
yeah.
could see it. But
Yeah.
it works, I guess, in terms of just summing up the hell of Vietnam. You know what I mean?
Well,
But
also
at
at
the
the
same time,
time,
it's like, yeah, it's a little on the Coppola side of things. Like you could see the influences. That's the thing.
well, at the time, it was one of the only. I mean, Vietnam War films are a bit of a specialty interest of mine. Like I've seen just about all, like not all of them. I will not say that because always little ones keep cropping up. But I have seen a bunch, and it very much fits very
Right.
neatly. Like it like, and also at the time, aside from Platoon that touched on this but didn't really go into it in much depth, it was one of the only Vietnam War films to discuss race.
Right.
It was
Yes.
which is one of the things I always found interesting because when the Five Bloods came out, we talked about this on the other episode. When the Five Bloods came out, everyone was talking about this is the first Vietnam War film to talk about race, and I'm like, Dead Presidents is right there. Dead Presidents is right. I mean, yeah, it doesn't do it as well
Right.
as the Five Bloods. I think like that's clear because it's a little less focused, but it's one of the early Vietnam War films to talk about race. But otherwise, it very much
Yeah.
neatly fits
Agreed.
the canon along with all the other ones. I would say.
Right.
Yeah. Right. Agreed. Right. So later on, as I said, CC, Cleon still has the head in his back, right?
Oh
And yeah, he
God.
says it's a good luck charm. And basically saying, yeah, we pretty much hasn't like nobody ever like no bullet ever grazed us, ever since we had this headshot. Um
Right.
so the Lieutenant Dugan, who we see in the montage could be just as crazy as Cleon. There's a moment where he headbutts a guy, a Vietnamese soldier in the nose red. I was like, Jesus, you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. I know.
Also one thing
This
like the
that's why the
movie,
film. This why the film looks cheap because the film. This film looks like what $10 million something like that. Yeah, a lot of
Right.
the blood stuff is real cheap in this. Really.
yeah. Well, that's what
Eh,
I was about to say though, is
Yeah,
that
real B movie.
there's a lot of squibs using this. Say
Yeah, but
when
Yeah.
people bleed, like they really bleed.
yeah, look back. Yeah,
Not
look,
ridiculous geysers of blood, but
We're
yeah,
not
nah,
it's a
that's
like
Tarantino.
it's a no, it's not Tarantino at all. It's not like Kill
yeah.
Bill where that chick got her arm severed off. Like no, but it's a bloody nose. Right? Like you just see like two small squirts of like you just see squirts of blood basically from a bloody nose, but whatever, right? But yeah, Dugan orders that Cleon get rid of the head, which he pretty much does by burying it.
Right.
In between time, there's a soldier that realizes, oh well, where is he? It's like he went to take a shit. But he like is like, where is he? So now they're looking for him now, and they pretty much find him with his intestines exposed,
Right.
and what I thought initially was a tongue, and then I realized no, it's actually his penis
Yeah.
in his mouth thread. And here's the thing: I will give the movie credit. It really shows the sheer brutality of the war. like in a way that you would see most Hollywood movies go. And I have to applaud, like even though the like narrative is uneven, I have to applaud the Hughes Brothers though. Like they don't shy away from showing you how real and graphic violence is. You know, like even though they have a Hollywood budget, they're still gonna show you the rawness. You know what I mean? So it's very reminiscent of I mean, Menace Society wasn't graphic, right? It wasn't bloody, but yeah, it was raw violence, and you get that pretty much here with that scene alone. You know what I mean? Like it could have just stopped at the intestines, but no, we had to show what's in his mouth too. So that was a really effective scene. Ricardo, any thoughts on just that scene, that reveal?
Yeah, it was super brutal, Joe. It's like, wow, they just, suddenly just run up on him and thing. But it was had to be like a blade or something like that, right? I mean, I don't know how he died and nobody hear that shit. Like, why would you run away that far to take a shit? Now that's kind of dumb. There's one of these things in the movie. There's one thing in the movie that bothered me a little bit. Is whatever. It's one of these things that
like the actions of people, like do they make sense? That kind of thing.
Right. These characters not making the smartest decisions, and it's not even working within the framework of them making these mistakes now. Because like I don't mind if you have characters make mistakes, that's fine, but it had to make sense in the characterization. And this film was like
true. He was just he wasn't even a side character. He was just an extra in the film. Right. And they did say, oh well, he didn't want anybody with him when he was doing his thing, right? So I don't know, but I get where you're coming from. CC, any go on, sir?
No, that it's just characters that make decisions to drive the plot forward, which is not something that's again is not a big issue because it's not a central part of the film, so it's like you can kind of ignore it. But yeah,
right, yeah. CC, any thoughts on that that shocking reveal?
I mean, I've already mentioned that the Hughes brothers are really good with action and violence, and it is a middle ground. I mean, I haven't seen Menace to Society yet. I do know that Book of Eli tends to be a lot more stylized and less like visceral in its violence. I will say, I don't think it's more violent than other Vietnam War movies, if that makes sense. Like I've in like kind of looking at war films in general. I have a research project I'm working on, but I've kind of noticed that the Vietnam War, with the exception of that one John Wayne movie, Green Berets, with the exception of that, Vietnam, with the exception of Green Berets, Vietnam War films are never like they're not like World War II, where you have some that are like like with World War II, you have
like glorifying the soldiers and we must fight.
It's
the ugliness of the war.
Yeah, it's the first kind of war that more or less embarrassed America because of the nature.
Oh yeah,
just the moral failing of its intentions. Like it's still up to this day quite unclear why the Vietnam War happened. Like it have a clear argument as to why blah 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 blah. We could get into all kind of arguments about who Henry Kissinger was and all these history nonsense now. But yeah, it is the war that's never portrayed, almost never portrayed in a positive light. Never.
Right. True. I mean, the only exception is John Wayne, which is also now it's in now that movie is infamous because it stands out. But I feel like Vietnam War films in general have just kind of a very every Vietnam War film I've seen has a kind of a baseline of very nasty graphic violence. Like I'm thinking about Hamburger Hill, Apocalypse Now, and Platoon are the big ones. What was the one? The Michael Cimino, Christopher Walken, The Deer Hunter.
Oh, the Deer Hunter, yeah.
Yeah, the Deer.
Which by the way, just sorry to cut you there. I felt like the first act of this movie here is very reminiscent of the Deer Hunter, where it's normal life characters going about their day, growing up, falling in love, and then the second act, they're thrown in war and in hell, and the third act, they're back in the real world now, and they have to deal with life, right? So it has a very Deer Hunter feel to it. But yeah, go on.
Yeah, the thing is with Vietnam War is it's the first war that was a mix of so two things. Well, obviously, the first obvious thing, it was post counterculture movement, right? It was the first the war that just was going on more or less at the exact same time and driving a lot of the counterculture movement. So, America becoming, for lack of a better term, pretty woke and self-conscious, and all these, counterculture movements that started happening. And then you had Nixon as president, which wasn't helpful, right? You had
Yep.
that was
Yep.
you know, like it didn't start on the Nixon, you know, it was, you know, the bullshit was
It
going
was
on
Kennedy.
since right, since JFK, but like then it started to become super unpopular. And one of the big factors that make this war as popular as it was as well, they addressed it in the beginning. The draft, right? The idea of the draft was something that is so unclear and murky. Like all the shit you could say about you know, the Iraq war, the Afghanistan war in our generation, it didn't have a draft in the end of the day. Right.
No, it's also, and then the Five Bloods even gets into how that's specific, how that experience of the draft being unpopular, it's specific. Like the Five Bloods gets into how it's specifically from the Black experience, the Black American experience.
Right.
How the war coincides with the civil rights movement and the assassination of Martin Luther, and how that creates conflict for Black Americans. And and this movie touches on that. It doesn't go into that in like a lot of depth. There's a similar thing. But like my main point is that I feel like most Vietnam movies, like even the first Rambo, not the second one, which is a big ridiculous. Cameron.
The first Rambo is our whole. That's the whole point of that first Rambo, right?
Oh yeah, the first Rambo, everyone misremembers as a fun action movie, but you watch it, it's a dark survival movie.
Yeah, very film too.
And then the ending Rambo's, you know,
meltdown
effect. You know, his speeches, his soliloquy at the ending.
Yeah,
I don't know. And it's lighter than the book, because the book is like super dark, right? I mean, they make it think, but no, you're hard pressed to. It's super hard to sell the Vietnam War as a thing, and one of the biggest factors was the draft. Like the draft, the draft was such a big problem that they more or less, I think pretty much after this war, they more or less got rid of it after this war, right? At that point. And
then also as far as the violence goes, I remembered Brian De Palma's Vietnam War film, the one with Michael J. Fox and
Casualties of War. I still haven't seen that.
That one was also.
Yeah, I need to. Yeah.
And then we'll get into something that comes in later in the film that's relevant. But you know, they tell a little something called the Pentagon Papers, if you know what that is, and that references, that is that blow up a piece of information that is referenced in the film. It's very subtle. It's a quick throwaway line, but I picked it up and it was actually this. It's like, oh, that was interesting characterization. But yeah, we'll talk about that when it comes up.
Right. So near the guy's body, right? Just keep it in mind he's still alive, right? There's a pamphlet. It's titled "U.S. Black Men." Anthony reads it, and he tells them it has to do with black men going home. It's not their war, right? And I was like, all right, let's pause the scene and read carefully what it is, right? So they didn't pick up everything that was written, but they say something along the lines of oppose the U.S. aggressive war, demand their repatriation, and South Vietnamese affairs must be settled by the South Vietnamese. And I'm like, this is a really cool, like, okay, so, all right, like, it would have been interesting if the film addressed it, like, went a little bit deeper, but I get that, okay, we just had to kind of show it, this kind of make the point a little clear here, right? But this is something that, you know, like, I wish, like, well, okay, so basically, this show, the Five Bloods, kind of address that a little better in terms of
stuff, right?
Right, with that moment, right? But here, like, I wish there was just like a little moment to be like, okay, so what do the Vietnamese, the South Vietnamese really think about these black men, these black soldiers being in this war?
Right.
Like there was an opportunity, but it's just like, all right, but the movie had a move though, so let's just have a little glimpse of it, basically, you know?
Right. Yeah. It's the same Hanoi Hana stuff, right? And just on it's just propaganda, but you know they have a point they're making, and there's a nice little line, like say where the white was this colonel, I forget his rank, makes the point, you know, throw away that commie shit. No? Like, yeah, it's a nice little point.
Oh, right. Dugan says that, yeah.
Right, and he kind of give it pause and say yes, sir. And then he just like, and I like that little small moment. All these little things that just it's solid little moments that pops up. It's like, okay, you know, I don't remember all of this in the film and see the film when I was like, I don't know, you know, 11 or whatever, right?
I saw that when I was high too. Right. So another moment I forgot was basically where they try to get the soldier, you know, back to this chopper, but he's like, you know, kill me. So while they're waiting for the chopper now, behind everyone's back, Anthony injects the guy with morphine,
All
and he
right, so
dies, right?
it was a second thing of morphine because the field
The
medic told him
doctor.
if the field medic told him if he sticks him with a second set of morphine, it'll be too much for his body and that'll kill him. So that's why he did it. So it's, he knew that.
Yeah.
They said that from right.
Yeah, now, just to touch back on what you said, CC, about Daddy Elfwood's music. Here you hear his music, like you actually hear throughout the entirety. Well, say for one moment near the end of this whole Vietnam War sequence. Here I felt like the music was played a little too much for dramatic intensity. Like you hear these swelling violins and the real play it off like, oh my god, how could this guy do this? You know what I mean? It's so melodramatic though. So, but at the same time, I kind of understand in terms of the film, in terms of what's being shown in the film here, because yeah, basically this is the first character that we see Anthony kill that he doesn't want to kill. You know what I mean? It's like it's one of your brethren, and it's like, yeah, look at what I'm doing here. So yeah, I mean it's a really effective scene. When you see time I felt the music was a little over dramatic in my opinion. I don't know if you all agree or
A little
with the
bit,
scene or
yeah.
not.
It's very.
Yeah, no, I mean it is a very powerful scene, for what it is. At least the scenario, it's like holy shit, you had to kill your own friend, you something that you don't want to do, but like when you see your friend in the situation, it was like, yeah, well, I mean, you make a call. So, but yeah, I don't know, I can't tell if it was a little, I don't know, to me it wasn't too much, but like, yeah, I understand if somebody finds it a little on the too much on the news, but I think it was that bad.
Yeah. Okay. Right. So before we leave, we have this great little montage moment, basically with all the guys, taking pictures of each other. Skip is there, Cleon is there. You know what I mean? Just having fun and whatnot. Cleon just take like some mud and put it on his face and taking this picture.
Right.
I thought it was a really cool moment.
Listen, I don't know that was mud because that mud look kind of black. I mean, kind of wonder.
I was in my head. I was like, that had to be mud.
I hope it's mud. Let me say, I hope it's mud. Right.
We know he's crazy.
Right.
We know he's crazy.
Like
It could have been
he's standing alongside. He's standing
And the man,
alongside someone. So you wouldn't want to have
but the thing is
that on his face.
Yeah, but the man didn't really have a problem with the smell of a dead head, right? So I mean,
True.
That's all I see. That's all I see. That is all I see. There you go.
Yeah. Right. So cut to 6 months later now. Well, okay, so in that montage, sorry, Skip is sent home. This is 6 months after that guy, got the morphine in him, right? And then, well, in 1973, Anthony returns home, right? There's a great moment where you see Anthony in this car, he's all dressed in, military garb and whatnot, and he spots Skip. He sits outside the store, and like when he goes to say hi, he sees him kind of like spazzing out a little bit. So in your head, you're thinking, all right, this is PTSD, but then you learn later on it's actually, well, drugs, right? Because, yeah, the guy was on heroin, which is something that I wish that they kind of showed a bit in the Vietnam War sequence. All Skip said is just that he smoked weed. That was it. But never mentioned anything about drugs.
No, but that's the thing. We had to get into that because this is where I'm going to talk about. Well, it's a scene a little after, but we're going to talk about that kind of. We could probably talk about it now. He only picks up the drug a bit after. But why? Yeah, well, why? And we're like, you gotta explain why. Because why? The reason for it is, or the this working implication is super disturbing. But yeah, go ahead now.
Yeah. And it's funny that at just that exact time where Anthony runs into Skip though, Cowboy comes through again.
Yeah. Yeah, he's still there. Because he didn't get.
Yeah, he didn't recognize him at first. He's like, oh.
Yeah, I think Cowboy is too old because he never. I don't know if he was drafted, but he would have been a draftee if he was never drafted. I mean, I think drafting was like, I forget how drafting worked exactly, but it was just a kind of like a lotto. It was basically like a negative lotto, right? That's basically what it was. I think that's what it was. So he just never got drafted.
Okay.
Yeah.
What they say here, what they hint at is that well, he's a hustler now and he's working for a guy. We'll get to that guy in a bit, right? So inside the pool hall now, well, going back to Kirby's pool hall. Before we get to the pool hall, Skip basically says that Hosey is working at this post office, and it's actually this great conversing between Anthony and Skip, right? So Skip
Right.
talks about, well, he don't need to work for the rest of his life because he getting,
Right.
paychecks.
Right.
He's receiving a 50% medical check for the rest of his life. But
Right. Right.
yeah. So, this rounds up. So Auntie's like, but dude, you not disabled. But then he says, well, his blood cells are all messed up. He wakes up at night, cold sweating. I see. Well,
Right.
apparently, to him, apparently, it wasn't the heroin used back in Vietnam, but a lot of vets are suffering the same way Skip is.
Right.
He makes that very apparent, and I thought that was like a really interesting moment.
Right. Right. So that is the super disturbing part. If you know, right, again, this information only at the time this was not known at all. Just a little quick, very super dark history lesson. Anyone knows what Agent Orange is? Right.
Oh, that's what he alluded to. Oh,
yeah, that's basically what it has the implication of what happened that has happened to him. It's implied that he was exposed to Agent Orange. Agent Orange is some pretty nasty business, probably one of the most disturbing chemical weapons ever. And that was exposed when the Americans was like, oh well, the Americans just doing this and doing that, not realizing they was exposing a ton of people to this thing. And yeah, that was like, when I saw that, I was like, wow, they actually had this in this movie. At the time, again, when I first saw this movie, don't remember all of that in the movie. I was like, oh shit, that wasn't goddamn.
That they talk about that in the movie, yeah. That was it had stuff in it that you could tell the Hughes brothers were really passionate about. Like, this is like us really showing what black men went through in the war. You know what I mean? Like, you could tell that they had was right. But yes, it is this. We got another dinner scene at the Curtis residence.
Right.
So Anthony's parents are there. The older brother isn't there, which I thought was pretty interesting. But so pretty much.
If y'all remember him from earlier, last time he's in the movie.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So essentially, what was so ironic is that the 4 years he could have spent in college, he was all fighting the war. Because they did say, he spent 4 years fighting, right?
Yeah.
And of course, the mom is like, well, were you high? Did you get caught up in those drugs and all that kind of stuff? And it's like, no, mom, I'm just serving my country and be doing what a soldier does. And stuff like that, right?
I like these under the tone parts of it where the father is now much more sympathetic towards him. And he quiet about this. He say, he tell it. He have little body language moments where he just kind of eyeing the mother and telling the mother, hey, look, chill out on this. Let's let the man do his thing now. And that's a good scene. And Jennifer Lewis, as usual, is quite good. I forget her name earlier. This is the strongest scene in contrast to the previous scene. How it just mirrors each other so well. I really liked it. Little simple moments of how he was eating, just like horrible table manners. Little stuff like that.
Yeah.
Little things,
like literally he has not a meal in weeks. You know what I mean? He's just
not even that. I don't think it's that. It's more like, look, he eating in a war zone how long now?
Fast. I got he's eating really fast.
Yeah, exactly. All these little things now. And it's like no table manners in front of man, licking your fingers, all that bullshit now. And all these little small things I thought was made the scene quite well done.
I didn't pick up on his mannerisms while we were eating there. That's a good observation there. So now we get to Kirby's joint, right? So we're back at the pool hall, right? We get this little spike. Like, I was watching this scene, I was like, are they doing this Spike Lee dolly shot thing where like Lawrence is on the dolly and we follow him as he's telling everybody, hey, how you doing, man? All that kind of stuff. I was watching it closely because like is either the camera like it was like a steady cam shot or it was a dolly like he was on a dolly now. I'm not sure, but it looks similar the way how the camera moves and all that kind of stuff. But it has a very Spike Lee-esque kind of vibe to it, right? He actually runs into Jose, who seems apparently to be doing fine.
Right.
He was talking about how he was doing demolitions duty back in the war, and his hand got messed up, right? So you see his hand got scarred. But like apparently he just become obsessed with explosions.
Right.
Well, with explosives.
Yeah, it becomes a bit of a pirate. Yeah.
And the way how he was playing the performance though, and the way how he said that, I tell myself, all right, he gonna be the explosives expert in the whole in the robbery to come. I was like, okay, that's what you'll tell him. Okay. Of course, Anthony reunites with Kirby, and well, basically he's out in numbers business, thanks to some greedy, well, New York cops, right?
Right.
Seeing, worst cops in America and all that kind of stuff, right? And of course, well, Anthony, now that he's out of a job now, he applies for a job. Actually, he actually gets through this place called Saul's Meat.
Right.
Actually, surprised at how quickly he gets. She's like, hey, this Jewish guy just looking at Anthony is all reasonable. Like, hey, he looks cool. Like,
Right.
Can you cut meat? It's like, yeah,
Right. And
and then, well,
they make a little nice. They have a great little throwaway line with we say, "Are you related to the actor?" I like that.
yes,
Yeah.
to Tony Curtis. That was
Tony
funny.
Curtis.
That was,
Yeah.
I like how long it took for him to catch a joke.
You're right. Yeah.
Yeah. He visits Juanita.
Right.
And Delilah opens up now,
Right.
and
Let's
what I like
talk
though is
about
like,
this scene.
yes. So a little on the nose, but so Delilah basically, as Auntie steps inside the house, right? So she talk about how, is look, it's not your fault you were brainwashed by America. It'll be
Right.
just right off the bat, and even Anthony's just like, like, let me just sit down, let me just,
Yeah.
just calm, just chill, man, just chill, like, no scene, man.
Right.
But in her head is like, well, it's just yet another black soldier come
Right.
back.
Yeah, again, so this is a pretty understated scene in the film because they get into the aspect of, well, one of the things about the Vietnam War that people, like at the time, it is what I somewhat remember, is how the general public who were anti-war didn't blame the government in the same way, and they also blamed soldiers. And this was this is the first time we started separating the idea of, well, you could support the troops but hate the government. That so support the
Right.
troops thing now, because they used to just outright like spit at soldiers and say soldiers were the problem as well, in that way. But because of the nature of the war and the draft, you couldn't really do that. That was the problem now. So this is where that whole, like, the modern paradigm of supporting the troops. You need to
Right.
support the troops at all costs. That stuff now. That's where it's kind of come from, and I felt the film did that really well. Of, Anthony not really meant to like think about this stuff in that way, but they started planting the scene so that, and I felt the film could have taken a interesting direction here. I think stuff like this was a missed opportunity, and there's a lot of missed opportunities I felt in this film. But yeah, like what?
Yeah. So Delilah essentially is a revolutionary, right? And then, it's only when I remember, the scene where she's dancing that James Brown song, "See It Loud, Black and I'm Proud." Nice foreshadowing there. So I love that, right? Anthony sees his daughter Sarah for the first time. She's really cute.
Right.
Juanita, of course, she's there. It's a really beautiful moment. I really dug that, right? And then we have a moment with them in the car talking. Well, this is Auntie and Juanita. And then we have another character actor, I forgot was in this movie.
Yeah,
It's Clifton
well,
Powell of
Yeah,
Next
well.
Friday theme. He's
Yeah.
also in Black Lightning as well. So he plays a preacher there.
Yeah.
But here he plays Cutty, boy. This cat
Yeah.
like riding lollipop sucking pimp looking guy.
Yeah.
And
Of course.
he's the temporary quote unquote baby daddy for Juanita.
Right.
So he's like, show up and he's like, everything's okay. And I like when Juanita says, oh, and this is Auntie, and he just speeds off. Like, I just love that. This
Yeah.
That was really cool. Like, for the moment, there's like, all right, I should hate Cutty, though. I really hate him. But there's a moment afterwards where it's like, okay, I get where you're coming from, kind of, right? So
Right.
we get this course. What?
The other big scene with him later is really on the nose. And I'll explain why. What is just one thing about it that you notice, and like, really they had to go this far with it, but whatever. We're going.
Yeah. So we get
It's
this
also-
course. What?
It's interesting to me because what's great about this scene is that this is the scene where all of Antony's talk about, oh, I don't want you to wait for me. Oh, you can have your own
Right.
life. Just
Right.
goes flying out the window.
You're
Like,
right.
The minute,
Yeah.
the minute the minute that he realizes that Juanita was with this other guy while he was in Nam, and this guy was like taking care of them, and they were definitely having sex, and like what,
Right.
all of that. Oh, have your own life talk. He gets very territorial, for lack of a better
Yeah.
word.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So now we get this Scorsese X moment, right? And why I say that too is in terms of how the music is used for a scene of violence. Because yeah, once again, it involves Anthony and Cowboy, right? So this is the
Yeah.
rematch. Um, Cowboy starts taunting him, you know what I mean, during a game of
Yeah,
pool.
no.
He talks about how, well, his boss man Cuddy basically tap Juanita's ass, quote unquote,
Right.
while
Yeah.
he was in Dabna. Anthony flips out, beat the shit
Yeah,
out of Cowboy with a cue stick.
needlessly,
Yeah,
needlessly antagonistic.
yeah, boy. Like like his purpose in the movie is just to collect
To gay
licks from
ass.
someone. Yeah,
Yeah. That's a
to
gay
get
ass.
your ass wash, right?
Yeah.
But what I see is a very Scorsese moment is like where you know, okay, Anthony's about to flip out, sorry, and the music
Right.
just increases in volume. It's just him kind of lashing at this guy there. It's very, very, very Scorsese. Like if you know Mean Streets, if you know Goodfellas, it's one of those moments, right?
Right.
Um, and well, of course, Kirby pulls him. Well, in this case, he pulls off Anthony, not Cowboy in this case. So I thought it was really interesting.
Right.
So
Yeah.
some months later now, Anthony's still working at the meat shop, which is good. He's expecting another kid, which is just as good. But he has a drinking habit now.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So we have one of the most memorable moments for me in the film. Never forgot the first time I saw it. I'll tell you why. Is basically this driving scene with Anthony, Jose, and Kirby, right? Them in the Lincoln Continental. And well,
Right.
for one thing, what I love about the scene here, for one thing, it's very reminiscent of a scene in Menace to Society where our main characters are driving, in nighttime and hearing Al Green's Love and Happiness now. So in
Right.
this case, this was my introduction to a song from Isaac Keys called The Look of Love. And like the first time I heard that song and saw that scene in the movie, I fell instantly in love with that song. That beat though, that
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
something about that just stuck with me though. And yeah, the imagery that went with it, perfect. And it's funny too because well, a year later after the album's release, Jay-Z would use that
Right.
sample that in the song "Can I Live" for his
Right.
album, Reasonable Doubt, which also have a song called "Dead Presidents." Well, in this case,
Right.
"Dead Presidents" too, right? It's like,
Right.
okay, I see what you,
And it's
I see what
it's
they do with it. That's
also
really
well
cool.
it's yeah that's the only thing because you're thinking of dead presidents, you're thinking of the Nas sample. That's
Yes,
thinking in the
yes.
back of my head all the time now with these movies. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think that's why people remember the title for the song so much because
Exactly.
of the
Right.
Nas
Right.
sample and the
Right.
Jeezy sample too. Jeezy song, sorry. But
Yeah.
yeah, first time I heard that song, I loved it though. It just fits the mood all so well. But just to talk about the scene, it's basically well, okay, so one gripe that I have with the show here is how the robbery plan is introduced, right? So this kind
Right.
of comes off casual, like, yeah, this is what we're gonna do. You know what I mean? The truck usually shows up here at the post office and collects the
Right.
money, and then they go across to this Federal Reserve Bank and all that kind of stuff. Like in retrospect, I wish that it was like either Kirby or Jose that just kind of came up with the idea, and you have like this moment where they just bring in Anthony to talk about it, but not like they
Right.
drive in. So he's studying the road now, and you just talk about, oh well, this is what we're gonna do. This is what we're gonna do, and then they like, oh yeah, so you want to be part of it, Anthony? And Anthony's just supposed to just stand up and say, yeah, it sounds cool.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like they should have done it in a much quieter, moment, not while we driving. That's what I'm saying. It almost kind of feels like, oh, by the way, you want to be part of this, Anthony? Yeah,
By
why
the way,
not? You know what I mean?
by the
Right.
way, plot like
Yeah, that what it felt like they could have handled the introduction of the plan of the robbery a lot smoother, in my opinion. Agree or disagree, Ricardo?
Oh yeah. This is one of the big issues with the film. Again, this is one of the problems with the film. The film has, I'm just going to straight up say it, not the best pacing, in my opinion. It just jumps and moves along, and it is. Claude mentioned earlier of it not like the idea is not gelling together particularly well in terms of what scene and could can. This is one of those moments. It's like, oh, what? They just bringing this out of like what?
oh,
They have no link to anything here. What? And like I understand, like you should just have this information, but like to bring in the crime aspect of it now doesn't work all that well to me because no single
Yeah,
character should have this information in any workable way, right? It's only
Right.
Jose, kind of, but
Yeah,
okay,
the way he
I
works,
suppose.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah, I
go
think the
ahead.
reason why it doesn't work all that well is because we don't really see any real motivation for them to do it outside of, oh, we just need some quick cash. That's what
Right.
it comes down
That's the
to.
thing. It have no. That's the thing because it's just everybody that's kind of broke. It's not. There's no emergency or anything like that. Like it's not. It have no. Nobody need a thing. It's not like the daughter need a surgery or any shit like that, right? I think this year we had. Or there's another movie this year that came out. That also I felt this film was kind of borrowing from. Heat.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
Which
Because Heat
ironically
was
came
Heat.
out the same year as this movie here.
Yeah, Heat was what in the beginning of the year when it came out.
I
No,
think so.
sorry. Heat was at the end of the year. So Heat would have come out, it would have
Ah,
been at the same time. So
yeah.
apologies for that. I always thought Heat came out earlier this year for that. No, Heat came out later in the year, if I
Well,
remember correctly. Yeah, go ahead.
it was at that point in the '90s when crime films were really popular again, because
Right. Okay.
you had Tarantino with Reservoir Dogs and Pulp Fiction, and then
Yes.
Guy Ritchie's movies as
Right.
well, and so suddenly crime films were all the rage at the time.
Right. Okay. Right.
As far as like my personal thoughts on this particular scene, I don't know. The film is a little frustrating because it reminds me structurally of and this is way back, the Roaring Twenties with James
Right.
Cagney and Humphrey Bogart, where it's about
Right.
Oldie but goodie. Oldie but goodie.
Right.
oh yeah, it's brilliant. It's amazing how well that one holds up. But the plot structure is the same. It follows these veterans who come back from the war and they're struggling and they end up turning to a life of crime. So it starts out a
Right.
war film and ends up being a gangster movie.
Right.
And I feel like Dead Presidents is kind of it's trying to be a contemporary version of
Right.
the Roaring
Which
Twenties.
So this is something, the idea of veterans becoming criminals and the reason you have to worry about them, like there's a very real reason why soldiers go to a different prison than normal criminals, because you don't want trained people that's operating in the world. You basically have military level training in a civilian setting, right? Right. Police
Yeah.
can handle that, right? Especially police back in the 80s and 90s and 70s right. They couldn't handle that shit at all. And I felt we could have gotten, if you're doing a heist thing, they should have lined that up with the military stuff. Like,
Yeah.
he's a demolition, but we didn't. We get some of it, like, the demolitions expert, and they so and so, and but they could have gotten the set of skills playing itself out now. And they
Oh yeah,
kinda
I
do that.
agree. I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, they kind of do that, but because everybody kind of sketchy and not really, everybody's still kind of traumatized and not really of a clear sound and mind, and they didn't plan this shit out too well. Like, it doesn't really work, but it does address it. The scene does kind of address this, but it doesn't really come together too well. I don't know.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
one of these that doesn't work. But
Yeah,
go ahead.
I agree with you because with what the time that is spent on this idea of them going to war and the idea of war and the side effects of war and whatnot. Yeah, you would think that the characters would kind of approach the job a lot smarter, a little bit more tactical now. But I guess it was a writing like the Hughes Brothers, because they co-wrote the script as well. Maybe they didn't want to paint them as like these uber badasses who could pull off all X amount of tactical stuff really just to do it. They just kind of come off as this is like a last act kind of thing.
Right.
So let's do this, right?
But all you had to do to make this clearer, right, was to have basically like have a mission, have them do a mission in Vietnam that they then use the same methods and tricks to try and pull off this heist, and then suddenly that through line becomes clearer.
Right.
Like the
thing is, the thing is with it, it doesn't gel together as well because he was just somewhere else, and he was, there's the problem with that too. Because like if it was if it was Anthony and Jose, then it could have worked. Like, it would have made a little more sense, because he was the demolitions expert. I don't know. It again, all of this is kind of Monday morning quarterbacking, so it's not a big thing. But I don't know how to play it, but it's weird.
Yeah, just really uneven, right? But that's what I just run through so many moments before we get to that rub, right? So moving a little quickly now, right? Then out of the blue, we just get this really like horrific nightmare scene that Anthony has I forgot that was in the movie, and yeah, it's very 90s the way how it's shot and looked, but it just comes completely out of nowhere. And on the one hand, it works into because I mean it's a nightmare, right? So you see him wake up in the middle of the night and stuff like that. But at the same time, it just kind of comes and just knocks you off balance. Now, you know what I mean? It just kind of throws you off a bit. But yeah, once again, you know what I mean? The Hughes brothers really not shying away from showing blood and violence and gore. Now. And I felt like at that moment, that's really what it's about. Just for us to sneak in just a little bit of gore, you know what I mean? So you could really, really push that envelope as far as what they could get away with that R
Right.
rating. Y'all have anything to say about that really random nightmare scene, or it was
It's
just there?
because it comes
Yeah, go ahead.
right after the scene when he and Juanita are in bed and like she's trying to get sexy and he's like, no, I'm not feeling it, and then she just goes
Yeah,
to bed frustrated, and then and then we immediately go from that to the nightmare, and then him waking up, and then and I feel like, whoa, there's a scene in between these two scenes, or there's a transition between these
Right.
two scenes that we're
Right.
missing.
yeah, he does. Well, sorry, it does. It really does. And yeah, the next day, boy, is like one bad thing after another, boy. So Saul breaks down the bad news that he's closing the shop. So he gives them some,
Right.
some meat to carry home for his family and whatnot.
Right.
On his way home, however, he's given a flyer for the Nat Turner cadre. This is we learn it on. This is the sort of organization that Delilah is a part of.
Right.
And then, as Artie reaches home to his apartment, surprise,
Oh,
surprise,
God.
Cutty's here, walking down the hallway, and no liar, Powell, sorry, delivers one of the best performances in this movie, hands down.
Right.
Like I know
I
it's
forget.
very typical of the characters that he plays, the kind of intimidating, loud-mouthed, "I'm gonna shoot you in the face" type of person. But the
Right.
way how he pulls it off, though, really, really impressed me, though. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's typical drug dealer stuff. It's typical. Yeah, you know what I
Right.
mean? You was out in Nam and I was taking care of your woman, man. You was there for your
Right.
woman, man. What's the
I
sound if you
forget.
put a bullet in your head, man? You know what I mean? But
I
it
forget.
still works.
Yeah, I forget that he was in Russia with Chris Tucker. Um,
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
So it's that. The thing with the scene that has cracked me the hell up, and this is where the scene that was a little over the top. Like really, they had to put it like this. His costume, this
Oh,
this deep red with black, and is the way how it framed, the way how it framed as is like if his color look like horns almost. Like chill out,
oh,
bruh.
yeah.
I mean,
Absolutely, absolutely.
just watch that scene, the real overdo it, Judd. It's like, I mean, the color, they really had to choose that color with him, Judd. Like, wow.
Yeah. Oh, but yeah, like I was
It's a
saying,
lot,
I
yeah.
really love that performance. So how, 'cause yeah, the man really is intimidated, though. And he's like,
Yeah.
don't you ever bite the head that feeds you, man. You know what I mean, and all that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
though.
Well, okay.
And yeah, you really
One,
do feel it for Auntie, though. You really do feel it for
one,
him. Because
one.
cause what I say, because you feel how, because literally like emasculated right in front of our eyes. So like, dude,
Yeah.
this man coming at me at gunpoint, Dread, telling me I'm a worthless shell of a man, Dread. Like, jeez, you know what I mean? So yeah,
My one critique of the scene is that it just kind of stops. Like it's very
Right.
strong, and then
Right.
he has the gun in his face and he says, "Suck it," and then he's like, "What are you gonna do? Kill me? Go ahead." And then it's like,
yeah,
"No,
and he just
no,
stops.
I'll
Yeah,
let you."
Right.
And then he just lets it. Like, uh, hello, like I don't
yeah.
know.
Like I don't
Right.
know, like he still have the Vietnam War in him apparently. Like he cut his sword in his eyes or something. I don't know.
Like if you're gonna do that, it needs to read stronger than that. Like if you're gonna do
Right.
the whole if you want him to snap and go full vet on him, then okay, you need to
Right.
commit to it. Like it needs to kind of have a
Right.
little more impact than that, rather than
Right.
just him like saying "Go ahead, kill me," and then him just be kind of giving up. Like it's just okay,
Yeah.
it's the
Like I think
intimidation.
what would have made it work was I don't know if maybe Juanita came out of the door, something out of the
Oh
apartment
yeah,
and called out to
Right.
someone, maybe something like
Right.
just
Right.
a visual cue
Something
for
to
you to be like,
interrupt.
oh,
Right.
okay,
Yeah.
all right, yeah,
and
right,
then my only other thing is that this is also the last time we see this character.
Right.
Like Cuddy, is that his name? I think.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
Because we've officially reached the point in the film when we're just dropping characters. Like The mom and
Right.
dad we never
True,
see after
true.
the second dinner scene. We
Right.
never see Cowboy again after the scene when he gets beaten up. And
Right.
this is the last time we see Cuddy too. Like we're at the point where we're just dropping characters at this point.
Right.
I mean, a character gets reintroduced in a few scenes, which we're going to get to in a minute.
Right.
But for the most
Yeah.
part, we're at the point in the film when we're kind of just dropping characters. Like, are we never going to? Well, we'll never see you again. Okay, bye. Like,
Yeah. That's one gripe I have with the show as well.
yeah.
Yeah. All right. So next off, we have this very well acted and directed scene. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, because I wasn't picking it up while I was watching it. I believe it was all done in one take too. Which is essentially this argument between Anthony and Juanita. I could be wrong if it's a long take, but it felt
Right.
like it in terms of the tension and the way how both actors do the scene. But yeah, I mean, it is derivative. It's the whole, you know what I mean? Well, if you were home, you know what I mean? Blah, 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 and all that kind
Yeah.
of stuff. And why'd you go to get a real job? You know what I mean? It's
Right.
you see that millions of times, right? But in terms of like what we've seen before with what happened with Anthony, though, it works okay. Yeah, this is not a man who's like, look at what I'm doing. Like, how is this not enough? And yeah, just him like snapping there. So I love that. I really, really love that moment. Then
Yeah.
next off with nowhere to go, he actually goes to the Natuna cadre headquarters.
Right.
Delilah is there. I wish that they gave her a few more lines because she's doing the whole, power to the people, that kind of
Right.
stuff. Right on, all that kind of stuff. But it
Right.
works, and especially the afro that she rocks in that. Like, yeah, she fit. She looked the part. I'll give her that. She looks the part. Like she could literally play. It's like she's literally a Black Panther in this movie. It's
Right.
really convincing. Later on, while both Anthony and Delilah hang out at this restaurant, I like that he mentions later on to her that me and your sister are done, but I still have my daughter to take care of. So I
Right.
like that little. That they actually mentioned that too. There. But
Yeah.
if I have one gripe with the scene though is in the scene though, Delilah talks about she know her way around guns, right? She know how to handle a 22, a AK-47, so on and so forth, right? And
44.
Auntie's just like a 44, right? And Auntie's just like, yeah, so we doing this job there, and
Right.
you think you want to
Yeah.
tag along? And
Oh,
she's like,
boy.
yeah, and I'm like, this
What?
is
Yeah.
that's how you do recruitment, like
You know?
what?
Like we're off.
Duh?
It's a gang of veterans and a Black Panther. Like this is what could
Right.
possibly go wrong. Let's get
Right.
another veteran in. But yeah, we'll get to that. But like,
Right.
Yeah, I mean,
But
even
just-
if she understands the reasoning behind it, it's so quick. Like,
Yeah.
you're just mad.
it's extremely abrupt. It's extremely abrupt.
So now we get to, okay, so another movie I'm gonna bring up here, me going real old school now, is a little movie from a boy Stanley Kubrick, the God of filmmaking called The Killing, right? This
Oh,
is one of the
yeah.
movies that inspired Reservoir Dogs, right? Essentially, it's where our robbers meet together and they have the planning stage, right? They all sit around this table and they all figure out who's gonna do what, who's gonna be posted here and all that kind of stuff. And we get that moment. I love how it's very well shot and directed. I love how it's a typical film noir thing where you have the light hanging from the ceiling and characters just kind of appear out of the darkness.
Right.
This
Oh, yeah.
approaching tea light, and then once again, similar to like the Vietnam War sequence, we realize that Skip's part of this as well. So it's like,
Right.
I love that where you're thinking, okay, well, Skip had that. It's like, oh, here he is.
That's-
You know,
Yeah. Like what? Why in this? However.
Because we
yeah,
again, I
and
feel like
he's a lookout. He's there to look out.
Yeah.
Basically, so, all right, well, they could have gotten somebody else. Because the funny thing is, though,
Okay.
it's that one second is that Kirby says, yeah, I don't really trust this guy. I think we need somebody to look out for him. And
Right.
before we get to who that person is, yeah, Ricardo, your thoughts on that scene?
Yeah. It's a decent scene. It's a classic kind of. We've seen many times in other films and music videos and whatever it is. That's the spotlight on the top. Blah 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 blah. Good lighting, great. What I don't like about this is that the planning just now. Here's the thing. Watching the nature of the plan compared to what the result was, it didn't line up at all. Like I know stuff should go wrong, But what happens is so ridiculous later on that is like, wait, why does he needed to make this effort at all? Like what? Anyway, go ahead.
Like it's not a
Yeah,
super plan, no.
yeah, that thing. It's not a really complex plan. Like the
Yeah.
killing, for example. I really urge you guys to check that movie out. Like that plan was so tight. You know, it's so complex, right? Where it's like there's literally no room for error. Everybody have to do their part, and if somebody is arrested or killed, it's not like the plan stops, right? Everybody will do their job and get their fair share, and that's it, right? But I wish they did that here with this movie. So yeah, as I said, Kirby suggests somebody comes in to help Skip, and surprise, surprise to me when I saw it now, they actually hook up with Cleon, who
Right.
now is a preacher, and I found that was so brilliant. I love like when the establishing moments with him, and he's in this church now. He's talking about, yeah, I've well, I don't think he says killed, but he says I've memed. You know what I mean? Like he did that for the devil, basically, right? Like his head was in another place back then. You know what I mean?
Oh,
But
boy.
on this, the irony of the scene is that everybody's kind of here. They're like, oh, you was in the war, and you probably shot a few people. That's it. But
Right.
to the audience, like, no, we saw this guy sever a dead soldier's head
You know,
and keep it
And
in his
that's
back.
like
I love that.
that's like one of the things about this scene that throws me off, because they're like, we need another man to stand on guard. Who are we gonna get? Hey, I
Yeah.
remember this guy from the war who carried around a severed Vietnamese head.
You know?
Like, he'd be perfect.
Yeah, he not gonna do anything bad, right? I mean,
He's
Right.
not
he's a
gonna,
preacher, for God's sake, right? So
he's not gonna freak out on us. Everything's gonna be wonderful.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
of all the people they served with, the fact that he was the first person they thought of is hysterical to me.
That's true. And it's one of those things like this, as you say, Ricardo, Monday night, quarterbacking. How they know that he have a church across here? Like,
Well, no, I
okay,
mean, it's
like
not.
it's like how they know where he is? So how they know
It's not
exactly
to
where he
track him
is
down.
to
I
reach
don't think
out
that was
to
a
him
big
then?
problem.
Okay,
No, I don't. There's something that doesn't bother me. Like, it's not the biggest issue for me because, like, you don't get a sense. You get a sense a few days later. It's not hard to track him down. Each of them keep up with each other. That is not a problem for me. But
I guess so. I guess so.
yeah,
Yeah.
that doesn't bother me so much. Yeah, go ahead.
Right. So now at long last we get to the robbery, which is set on a Friday. Because Chris Tucker was in a movie called Friday, right? Anyway, moving on. That's a dumb joke. So moving on, right? So we start off at the Federal Reserve Bank. Basically Anthony and Jose posted up, right? So they like right underneath the bank itself, you know what I mean? Like underneath the stairs, basically, they have the face paint that I mentioned before. It looks really cool. Delilah is in a dumpster, basically. And she's just waiting there with, two guns in hand. Essentially, right. So Skip and Cleon now. The lookouts, they don't have the face paint on. Kirby is the getaway driver. He's parked, on the opposite side. No face paint on neither, right? So the armor truck arrives now, and then this black policeman shows up, starts talking to Cleon. He's like,
Right.
you need any help there, buddy? He's like, no, I'm just
Right.
waiting for the 6 o'clock train. 6 o'clock
the
bus or
bus,
something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's like, I didn't know the bus passes there this time, but
Right.
let me do you a solid, man. I served in the war too, man. I didn't recall like you. That blah blah blah, right? So while all this is going on now, Auntie and Jose move towards the bank. The guy that's in the armored truck notices them. Shots are fired. Delilah steals the show. I say that right off the right there one time because I never forgot this in the trailer. And I remember seeing this for the first time in the movie and thinking it's like the most awesome shit ever. Where she opens up the dumpster and she's like, ah!
Yeah.
Just starts to
Oh,
fire,
yeah.
blah, blah, blah,
I like
blah, blah.
why.
Like, I love
I-
that scene. It is very, very 90s, and it's pretty much
Yeah.
kind of a
Very-
precursor to set it off, but it just looks awesome.
It's
Nice to think
it's
with
very
her,
top
it's very,
awesome.
and then she yeah. She dual wielding pistols. Like, it's the most
You know?
ridiculous shit, right?
And
But the
she
thing
has
is,
to yell, dude. That would make it awesome too. As the the blah, blah,
you're right.
blah.
And I
Think
was
about
like,
that.
wait, why did she just panic and do that? Like, instead of just being calm, like everybody should calm the hell down in this sequence. And they
I
did
know,
not
and
do that.
everybody just like
Meltdown.
unsure. Like
You know?
especially Skip Boy. Like he just
Right.
said like, jeez, but like dude, like he said like he bubbling to himself like Cleon, like what are you talking to this cop for? You know
Yeah,
what I mean? Like
exactly. So
everybody just on
I thought
edge.
Cleon, yeah, I thought Cleon would have do the Vietnam vet thing and take him out real fast. And then Cleon just completely sleep there.
Yeah. It's funny that
That
he's one of the calmest people in the group.
right. Yeah, exactly.
Given what
Which
we've
is
seen.
like,
You know?
what?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Right.
I
So
don't know. I felt it was meant to be ironic. Like
right.
he's the coolest guy out of everyone. Well, outside of Anthony, of course, right? Because yeah, Jose is kind of off as well too, right? So yeah, Delilah is just being this badass. She firing shots. Love the scene. This policeman, the policeman who's talking to Cleon heads over to the shootout now. Kirby fires at him. So they have this little shootout. So he's outside the car firing at him. The cop fires back now. Kirby gets hit in the shoulder. Skip now shoots the cop in the head, and they literally have a shot where the camera is like on him, though, so you just see the bullet go right through his hat. Like, god damn it, you see blood like this just trickling down from his head. So once again, Hughes Brothers and violence, right? And you would think that Cleo would be the one to do it now, but it's like, no, it's Skip. It's Chris Tucker. Is the guy who we saw back in now, always hesitated, every time there was a shooter. Now he's the one who do it, right? So that is to show how on edge everybody is, right? Jose now Jose, yes. So he just go on and plant this bomb on the back of the truck, and then he just hop a ride. Like the truck just speeds off there. So he's there on the back there. So Kirby now he drives with the getaway car and just parks right in front of the truck.
Yeah. Kirby's the one who was actually making the most sense. Like logically, that was a smart. Like he didn't want to be in that position, but like he kind of had to do it to fix their bullshit now, because everybody else messing up.
Yes, indeed. And you could see him kind of noticing that, like, dude, this is not the plan. What's going on, right? It's kind of dumb looking at it now that the truck driver just like runs into, like, he literally runs into like a dumbass, right? Like, you're driving, you see this thing, is like, no, like that's the only thing that was missing, no moment. But he literally like slams straight down, and then the explosive goes off.
Right,
and the truck,
and the thing is, this quote unquote demolitions expert, totally overestimates the situation, and has this huge explosion. Like, dog, you're not trying to break into a safe. What the hell? Like, chill out.
And he's the only one that doesn't get it. Like, Tucker's character gets on his case, is like, we're trying to blow the doors off, not blow up the whole damn truck.
My boy.
And Jose's just laughing like a madman. It's just
everybody unstable in this whole situation.
He's definitely become something of a pyromaniac. There's like that whole bit. I feel like that whole bit earlier in the car when he's just like sitting there staring at his like he lights up his lighter and just kind of stares at it.
Yes,
and I'm this guy's become a pyromaniac. This guy. This guy is awful.
Like, oh my god. But yeah, so the truck blows up. I love that it harkens back to the intro, with the burning dollar bills. But then also too, well, in that same scene when in the Continental, they were talking about, they actually take the money to Washington to burn it. It's all dollar bills, right?
Right.
So it's kind of ironic that would happen in the middle of the robbery, right? So
exactly.
Complete aside, but was this the first time watching this movie for the first time? Was this the first time that anyone else learned that that's what they do with old dollar bills? They just like collect them en masse and burn them in DC. Like, this was the first time I heard of that one.
No,
right. Same here too. I never knew that until I saw this movie for the first time too.
Oh yeah, I was. I was kind of familiar with that idea of what they just do with old money. Yeah, it's just a cycle out the money. That's it.
Okay.
That's probably. But that's about it. But yeah, I kind of vaguely remember that, because it had another movie later on that I was like, oh yeah, they do that in movies. Maybe it had some Queen Latifah movie, not set it off, but way later, just relatively recent film. I can't remember when it came out, like 2013 or something. So,
Was it a comedy?
Yep.
kinda right.
Yeah, because I remember everything after Set It Off for her was
Queen Latifah
was
and
comedies, right? Yeah.
yeah, but it was Queen
Um,
Latifah. Gosh, I forget the name of the film, but
was it Mad Money?
something like that. But basically, it was you had to destroy money, and that was a movie later that also reminded me of that. But yeah, this
Right.
was one of the.
I
But
think
yeah,
yeah, I'm familiar with it. I think I am familiar
right.
with that.
Yeah, they're gonna steal heist money effectively, and that whole burden money thing. But it's not like they destroy any money; it's just it's cycling out of the system. They're gonna print new money to replace it.
Right.
But
Right.
like
Exactly.
they don't seem to get that. They're thinking, oh, we destroyed money. You're like, what? No, that is not how this works. They're not actually destroying money.
Yeah.
Money
No,
just
I think they
money
know,
just
but they're just
yeah.
thinking, hey,
Well, I feel
money
like
money is
they
money. Even quote
yeah,
unquote useless money is money
No,
that
no,
we need,
it's
right?
money.
So,
Yeah, yeah. No, the money could still be used in the system. That's the whole thing. It's not like it's not like they're replacing it with a different type of dollar or anything like that. I mean, America too big to pull that bullshit off, like what India or Trinidad did. They
oh,
can't just change
right.
your money like that. No. So it's that.
Yeah.
right.
But yeah,
Right. So in the building itself of the bank, a cop comes outside. Behind Anthony, Delilah, oh gosh, does the whole Anthony thing and
right,
fires at the cop, and like all the shots she fired missed the cop, and he
yeah,
like just started pumping with bullets. And I'm just like, but like 2 minutes ago, he was just this badass,
I
busting
know.
shots.
It's like
This one guy with one gun, just like blah 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 blah, and
yeah,
that's it. That's the end
and
of
all her
Delilah.
shots miss him. Like all
yeah,
like it's like she's like she does her two-gun thing that a few minutes ago was getting a bunch of cops, but like they all are like wildly off to the side this
right.
time when she
I
goes after
know,
him. And
right?
I'm like, did you forget in between
Yeah,
shots? Like what happened? Like
yeah,
But you good? And you say you
yeah.
good with guns?
All of a sudden you get incompetent, right?
You know?
right. It's weird.
Yeah, but so basically, Anthony ducks in time before Delilah starts firing, right? But yeah, as she falls to the ground dead now, he fires a shotgun at the cop's knee, right? So he's on the ground bleeding, right? Sorry, he's on the floor bleeding, right? So as he gets up, there's another cop. The cop with the shot knee, sorry, and he just pulls out this handgun, just kind of like empty the whole clip into him. Though I'm like,
Right.
jeez, man. And yeah, once again, them squibs though, them
Yeah.
squibs, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, another cop now who got shot, during the whole shootout now, he gets spared because by the time Anthony was about to shoot him, well, he runs out of bullets, right? So instead he gets his gun butt to the head. The surviving robbers, they run off with the money. Well, they was able
Yeah.
to salvage, I think it's about 30,000 from the burning truck. So okay, lucky them. And then we get to Jose, boy, and um, essentially he's being he's being chased by this police car, right? Down this
Right.
alleyway. And he's running. Then he stops, he fires a few shots into the car itself. It hits the driver, he's dead. And the car itself like hits him. And okay, so yes, his death is ridiculous. Like it's
Yeah.
really, really dumb. But I will lie though how they make it look with the body flying in the air and then his body on the front of the car and the body alongside him, and it looked really good. Like, I would say like the final shot of him like dying, I thought that was great. But how he did though was still really dumb. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I really felt so. So now we cut back to the hideout, right, to Kirby's place. Everybody else who survived, they split the money. Anthony is still shook over Delilah's death. Cleon feels guilt about his involvement in the robbery. It's kind
Yeah.
of funny because you signed up to do this, Mr. Preacher
Well,
Man.
it's not.
However,
I mean, it's not real guilt because bullshit. He bullshitted anyway. So whatever.
yeah, but it's more like this didn't play on the way it did. I shouldn't have been
Yeah.
this and blah blah blah.
And
And a lot,
the thing is, he don't serve a purpose at all because he just was a outright liability. Like, let's think about it. If he wasn't there,
well, he
the
is, yeah.
the
They
cop would
really
just
didn't
stop.
need him to be in it.
He didn't
Yeah.
need to be there. Whatever. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, but yeah. No, well, continuously with the cop though.
Right, the cop wouldn't be there to stop for thing to that's at best the cop might have come and interrupted Chris Tucker's character maybe.
All right.
Yeah.
Pass
And
the
speaking
only way.
of well,
Yeah,
yeah,
whatever.
speaking of Chris Tucker's character though, well, Cleon calls out Skip for his drug habit now, and then he can like a punch in the face, which I thought was funny. And then we have a scene that I felt, yes, it was well intentioned, but at the same time, this kind of comes out of nowhere. And this is where Anthony goes to like this really rundown area of the Bronx, and then
Right.
starts delivering toys out of his car truck to these kids
Right.
who like
Oh no.
jumping on this bed
Before
sheet
that,
there.
right, but before that, there's something that was super confusing. That felt like a weird misdirection, but then they addressed it later. So I don't know if that was a bad cut. So we see, um, oh gosh, Chris Tucker's character taking some heroin again, and he fall off the toilet. I thought he only did though.
Oh yeah. I thought so as well. Cause
Yeah,
well, slight spoiler. Yeah, yes he does, right? But yeah, I thought
right,
that was the moment too. I thought
yeah,
this was the movie wrapping up there. And the
right,
reason being
right,
I felt so is because the song that they play when they return to the hideout is Isaac Hayes Walk On By, and I remember that
right,
song ending the film there. But
right.
then it's only when I watch it again, it's like, oh, they actually play it twice. Okay, cool, whatever. I love the song. Yeah, but yeah, so there's a moment, yes, as you mentioned, Ricardo, where yeah, he is, get high off of heroin, and then I see before that, now you're seeing Anthony, still shook about what happened to it. He's getting drunk and whatnot, right? But yeah, so this scene, just want to talk quickly about them delivering gifts there, and he's all like, yeah, we come get some gifts, we Merry Christmas, right? So and then before I forget, Skip is all like, man, what the hell are you doing, man? You giving all these gifts, man? What the fuck, man? All that kind of stuff, right? But how I kind of saw the scene was how I guess they tried to connect it with the movie was early on when Cutty put a gun to his mouth and say suck it, come on Santa. He calls him Santa now, you know what I mean?
Okay, right, okay.
So I kind of
Yeah.
felt like this was him kind of trying to atone for his inability to take care of it, well, to be a responsible father, or I should say to give back in a sense. But in
Right.
terms of how it's set place in the movie, it comes out of nowhere because you never really saw Anthony as a guy who wanted to give back in the to begin with. Like they try to make it out like he's this Nino Brown character from New Jack City, where he's so rich and he have a lot of money and he more or less feeding off off of getting, the community high off drugs, that he has so much money now he could actually give away toys or like in the movie have, like this give out turkeys for Thanksgiving. It's kind of like that kind of moment, but it just kind of feels out of place here. And then what makes it even worse now is the following scene where they see how Cleon, or how they found out that Cleon was, driving around a new Cadillac and he's giving out $100
Right, yeah, yeah,
bills to people in church and all
right,
that kind of stuff. So it's the Goodfellas thing, right? Like you do
right,
the robbery, you're supposed to lay low, but he's not laying low.
right,
But
right,
actually not laying low neither. He driving around and offering gifts like out the
right,
blue,
Dressed
like
dressed as Santa.
yeah,
Bright
yeah,
red hat and
it's
coat, driving around. Hey everyone, here's some presents. Take the present. Like,
yeah, like where's
um,
he really should? And we never really saw like he was from a good area of the community there. So he goes into like this real impoverished area and just
right,
handing out gifts just because, and then you complain because Cleon handed out $100 bills. It just don't fit. But I get
right,
what they try to say in terms of the guilt that Anthony's feeling. So he feels that maybe if I give back, I would feel that bad. But they should have had they could have fleshed it out a little bit more there. But
right,
you could tell the movie was wrapping up and they were just trying to rush scenes and they just kind of had to have the scene there to make Anthony more of a good guy or show that he could still be good, even though
right.
he put a whole clip into a policeman whose leg was shot, right? But I don't know, y'all have any thoughts on that
Well,
Santa Claus scene?
I will say that I'm very critical of it because it does come out of nowhere, and then the movie is trying to wrap up, but then why are we adding this scene? Like, if the movie is trying to wrap
right,
up, it's actually even worse because, like, the scenes that come after it are all very economic. Like, they're showing what
right,
happened to people after the heist. They're showing, the cops begin to close in, and like as it goes on. This scene doesn't contribute
that's all.
anything.
Right,
Like nothing. I mean, and
right,
especially since like in the immediate next scene, as you pointed
right,
out, um, we have the whole bit where they're talking about how Cleon is giving them all away because he's handing out bills. He's not being subtle. So, if anything, it's contradictory. Like it feels inconsistent. It's weird. It doesn't. You could cut it out of the movie, and the movie would actually make more sense. It's weird.
Right.
Yeah, it is. Ricardo, any thoughts on that scene and how out of place it is, admittedly?
As I say, I thought like they wanted to cut, but they wanted to do the police thing after. Like for me, I find they could have cut the police scene with them coming for Chris Tucker's character, and then have that, and then cut the scene too. So you cut two scenes, and just have it where, well, the drugs still kill him anyway, because it was surprising how much money they saved after that truck explosion. So it had a lot of money in the truck. It is never clear how much total in the truck was. I'm not sure how much was in the truck total.
No.
Right.
Well, they never say how much, but they
Right.
had over
About
30,000.
300,000. They had over 300,000. I know that.
Right.
So it's a lot of money. But I felt those two scenes could have cut, because just show the irony. I forget. My brain's skipping right now about what the irony scenario of well, the money still destroy in its own way, and you didn't really save yourself.
Right.
And
So
it
one
just end up
character
Right.
using money in his way, in a positive way.
Right.
The other one uses it to more or less kill himself.
Right. But the thing is, like,
yeah,
two
you're
people
right.
dead in the it's something like two people dead in the heist itself, and then you get into everything just kind of fall apart from there. But I didn't really do that, and it was just kind of arbitrary. Like if they feel like they wanted to add scenes and have an ending, but they wanted to they was like indecisive of where they wanted to go with the ending here, so it was very confusing.
Yeah. I mean, which happens, but at the end of the day, you have to make up your mind before you start shooting, right? It's not like
Oh, yeah.
this was supposed to be our alternate ending, because we see two of the main characters in it, right? But we'll get to them in a bit, right? So once you learn about what Cleon is up to, the right over to shoot, sorry, and kind of conveniently you see Cleon
Right.
being taken out of the church by the police, right? And then
Right,
you
right.
see a subsequent scene where yes he rats out the other
Right.
crew members. Now, not surprised,
Right.
of course, right?
Right.
And then we get this really like well directed and edited scene. I want like generally, right? And this is where, as you mentioned before, Ricardo, where we see the last we see skips where we see Skip dead actually. Well, he's
Right.
he OD'd. Sorry.
Right.
I love the use of green in the scene. The green tint in the house. How it zeroes in on the
And then
on
they
the
have a
TV.
great shot of
It's this performance of
right.
Soul
Don
Train,
Cornelius.
Al Green.
Yeah.
With Don Cornelius. Al Green
Yeah.
singing "So Tired of Being Alone," classic song.
Right.
Yeah.
And it just cuts back with the police in the hallway, breaking in, and then it's just this shot of
Right.
of Skip strung out on this chair,
Right.
kneeling in his arm. His
Right.
eyes are like ghostly white too. And I remember first time seeing that, and that like legit freaked me out though. Like just
Yeah.
seeing that, and like watching that was like, it's still a really
As I
really
said, I would
like
have cut
effective scene.
either cut one of the heroin scenes. Yeah, as I said, I would have cut one of the heroin scenes or the other. So this scene is stronger, but you could have cut the other scene too. I find that was played so straight now. One way or the other would work. But you couldn't have two heroin.
I think the issue though, I think the issue with having two heroin scenes though is that we never really saw, we never seen, sorry, we never saw Skip use heroin at all in the film.
Right.
And it's only after the robbery you have that one moment. But then, as I say, you have the other moment where he dies. Though. So it's like, okay, well, yeah,
Exactly.
you could have either had the first heroin scene early on in the film or whatever, instead of just having them literally like 5 minutes ahead of each other.
Right.
It's just kind of weird.
You don't have to outright cut it. Like, to me, you can just outright cut it. I get the feeling. I felt they should have just cut it. Whatever.
Right. Just another scene is what I mentioned before I get to your thoughts, Cece, right? Back at Kirby's place, Anthony and Kirby did this bagging the share the money and talk about, they're gonna go to Mexico and buy a villa and all that kind of stuff.
Gonna make a run
and this
for
is
it.
great. Yeah, they're gonna make a run for it, and this is great shot, like well framed, I should say, where the police corner Anthony on this hallway, this really tight hallway.
Oh yeah.
And it's this overhead shot where you just see cops on either end. Like that is so awesome. Kirby tried to fight them off with the crutch, and I'm like, dude. But again, in terms of
it's a
character,
yeah.
right. Sorry. Yeah, a pool stick. Like I know. Like I get into the Kirby's character why you would do that, but dude, pool stick versus guns. Like, come on, right? But yeah, just that shot with Anthony in the hallway in the middle of all these cups. I love that. But yeah, Cece, your thoughts on the reveal of the reveal of Skip's death and the eventual arrest of Kirby and Anthony. Any thoughts on those scenes?
I think that this part of the movie is cut together really well. Like this, like the whole thing that like once the cops start to close in and everything falls apart, it's all edited very well. So you have, they pull up to the church and Cleon's getting arrested, then Cleon's getting interrogated, then the cops burst in on Skip and find him dead, and then Kirby and Anthony are going to make a run for it, but then the cops burst in on them too, and then they all get caught. And like it's paced very well, it's edited very well, like it flows together really well. I even enjoy the fact that do they play Walk On By when Cleon is getting arrested, or is that a different song?
Oh no. They I forgot the song that they play for him.
Yeah, and then followed
But I
up with
think for yeah,
and
but
then
I
followed
think
up
for the other scene with
yeah,
with
it's an
Anthony and
outreach.
Kirby's arrest, I believe that's a Curtis Mayfield song that they play in there.
Right, and
Yeah,
then
but they don't get to walk on by until the next scene, which I'll get into. But yeah, go on.
but yeah, but no, I think like this part, like I love it. It's very it's kind of montage without going full montage,
Right.
but it's very like one like Cleon's arrest has this like ripple effect or like dominoes falling
Yes.
over, and it's very well paced, and it's one of my favorite bits in the movie. Yeah.
Yeah, it is very, very, very well done. So now we get to, well, near the end of the movie, actually. This is, well, the courtroom scene involving, of course, Anthony, right? And this is where we see his older brother again in the movie. And
Oh
I was
yeah.
like, wow, this is where this stuck him in, right? Okay. Okay. He's there with his mom, and his father's there too. And Juanita, yeah, Juanita's there as well, right? So essentially, it's what I love about this I just love the sequence in total, right? But one thing that really caught me by surprise, I forgot that he was in this movie. Martin Sheen though.
Right.
And I'm
Yeah,
like, yes, it's
another
clear.
another Mass Effect alumni, the elusive man
Yes.
himself.
Yes. And I have a feeling they just brought him in this movie because, well, Apocalypse Now, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
As soon as I saw him there, I was like, yeah, Apocalypse Now worship right there, right? So I love where basically where Auntie's lawyer comes in and says, well, he served his time in the war and he was such a dutiful soldier and all that kind of stuff, right? And he knows about honor and duty and all that kind of stuff, right? I love how Martin shuts him down. The judge shuts him down one time and says, hey, I served in World War II, Dread, in the Marine Corps as well. I know a lot about honor. What he did there goes against that. And I don't want you or Anthony to use the war or any war as an excuse to make him to butt him up now or make him look
Right.
He has a
holy.
good throwaway line too. He
I
said,
love that.
but he does a little. He does a little throwaway line in it where he says, I served in World War II, a real war. That's a good line.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Little moment where like
Yeah.
like that's when I'm oof. Like yeah,
Yeah.
you wince at that part.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like,
Yeah.
ooh, that's how the relationship done there. So it just completely backfired. Anyway, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, indeed. Indeed. And I won't lie though, Martin Sheen's cameo in this way, A+ in my opinion. I
Yeah.
love that, right? So yes, so overall now, Anthony is sentenced to 50 years to life. Of course, Anthony flips out. It's like, what? 50 years to life? And it's like, all this shit I did, I set my fucking country. He just spazzes out.
And then like
And
throws
that's
the
when
god.
yeah, he picks up a chair and throws it at the judge there, which I felt was a little over the top, but
Like,
because
I'm like,
well,
dude, you're
going
not
back,
winning yourself any favors.
yeah,
What are you
Yeah.
doing?
yeah, indeed. But going back to this is the second time that we hear the song "Walking By." The way how the song opens, right, with the violins and how they just go into this crescendo in the intro, right, before Isaac even sings anything. it works in that scene. You feel
Oh, it
the
does.
rage. You feel this how angry this man is there. Then when the violins are go into that crescendo, that's when he grabs that chair, throws it, he just starts swearing all that kind of stuff. It works. It's a very, very,
Oh,
very,
yeah.
very powerful scene. Yeah. And then the final shot is Anthony in this prison bus on his way up north. And one thing I found that was really interesting that I looked at it carefully. In terms of the prisoners, no white prisoners, just minorities. Just blacks and Latinos there. Like, okay, yeah, yeah, that's a serious point. The only white man basically is, I guess is the guard and the guy driving the bus, right? And the last shot is, Auntie just looking outside the window. Yeah, clearly, like, yeah, look at what I did, right? There's no way out of that. And the movie ends there. So, I don't know. I just think it's simple, but it's just quite it's a very effective way to end it. Like, yeah, I done messed up now, Trent. Jeez, we should have been smarter here. So, last words and rating here on Dead Presidents, right? I'll try not to say too long here. Um, as this is a sophomore film from from the Hughes Brothers, it does remind me, like I said earlier, while I was watching this, it reminded me of Desperado, where
Okay.
it's like, all right, Hollywood has their eye on you now. You have a chance. You're gonna make this big big feature film. You have money at your disposal, so it almost feels like similar to like an album at times, right? Where you have all these ideas, you just want to throw all these ideas in this one film, right?
Right. Yeah.
So you could tell, like they wanted to touch on a lot of things, a lot of topics, have a lot of elements in it. But like I said earlier on, it feels also too like, all right, well, we can't do you can't do the best of society thing, where it's just about the hood, it's about the streets, right? We have to paint this broader, portrait of, of what African American soldiers and went through at that time. There. But at the same time, you have to kind of entertain your audience. You remember, these films have to make money, right? So yes, let's have these war moments. Let's have the robbery and all that kind of stuff. And that's not to say that the robbery was just there to kind of get butts and seats, but that was all over the marketing, right? So people
Right.
like myself, like I remember the first time watching this, I was like, well, wait, where's the robbery? Like I thought this was about the robbery, right? But
Right.
uh, I get even look at it now that okay, it's all about what led up to it. I felt like pacing wise, it could have been a lot tighter. Like,
Right.
not say that like probably remove a few scenes altogether, or just not add so much characters and situations in it, and just get to the robbery quickly. I think that would have worked better. Also, just kind of fleshing out the robbery itself, right? In
Right.
terms of the execution, the plan, and then you really see where it all goes wrong, and not just because two people make mistakes, really dumb mistakes, and that's how it all falls apart. It could have just been things that just kind of happen haphazardly, right? And that what in terms of these heist films, that's what makes them work. It's not about bad decisions made by the people who doing the jobs. Is just, oh, we really didn't think about that, and this is what happened, right? So
Right.
that could have
Right.
been played
Right.
out a lot better, in my opinion. Also, the motivations in terms of leading up to it, I felt could have been much clearer, right? Much more, more focused actually. I get that they really went to zero in on Lawrence Tate's character, but still with the whole coming of age angle that they go with, it's like, all right, we have to buy into him being this guy who knows a lot of people. He knows his way around the streets, and yet after going to this war and all this drama, coming back home, now he suddenly wants to put on face paint and go and shoot cops. You know what I mean? Like it just feels a little uneven there, in terms of
Yeah.
his motivation. And yeah, as a whole, yes, the film is uneven narrative wise. I felt
Yeah.
like it just needed like just a couple more
Yeah. 'Cause even though the
rewrites.
face
I
paint,
would have
even though
been
the,
better.
yeah, like we didn't mention this, even though the face paint thing looked cool, it didn't like thematically make sense. Like to me, like why did they paint their faces and why only two or three of them paint these faces? Like not everybody paint their
Right.
face. Is
True.
unclear to me. Like
Yeah, yeah,
why
that's a
they
good point. Like if it
didn't get it.
was them going inside the bank and say, "Hey, heads up, this is a robbery," that would have worked. But because
Right.
they try to be all low key with everything now, and they're just centering on a truck and not,
Right.
the bank itself, Yeah, you know what I mean. You're right. You're
I
right.
couldn't follow
Oh,
why the face paint was a thing. That is all I'm saying. Like it again. It's
yeah.
something that looks cool. It looks cool in a promo sequence. It looks cool in a trailer, but it doesn't make sense in the film, like compared to the rest of the film.
Yeah,
For
I
me,
think it is based on that face painting is based on real events that happened. Something
okay.
similar, but it's not
Oh really? I
based.
did
It's
not.
not like it. Yeah, that's it.
But
That this movie is.
it's not like it's camouflage war paint or anything like that. Again, would make a little more sense because it's Vietnam. So it's even that. Um, I don't know. Okay, well, I'm just gonna give my quick
Yeah.
2 cents and then we could done.
I was almost done. I was almost done. I'm actually gonna wrap up. I'm gonna wrap up. I promise, right? But however, though, with all of its imperfections, though, I will still say that this is a very impressive sophomore effort from the Hughes brothers. It really does like you could tell this was their opportunity to really showcase their talent, really showcase what they've been working towards. I mean, as far as making films and whatnot, and you see it even right down to the films that they draw inspiration from. You know what I mean? The Goodfellas, the
Right.
Apocalypse Now, and all that kind of stuff. It's all in this film, right? Um, I just wish that in retrospect that they had much more films in their filmography where you could see the evolution of their style. That way you could see, okay, well, this is where they got the rhythm. This is where we could see this is the Hughes brothers film, right? So even stuff like the Book of Eli is like, oh, they did it. You know what I mean? So they didn't really have that much of a signature style in terms of visuals. But I was saying, in terms of subject matter, to me, still, Menace Society is the best too.
Right.
Just into the rawness that they brought here. But in terms of bringing across that same rawness into a different, field, in terms of the coming of age drama slash war film slash uh, heist film, is quite commendable in my opinion. I think that the performances are strong throughout. Narrative, like I say, needed some touching up ever so often. The music choices are spot on. They're great. They really add a extra layer to the mood of the film. And even though not all of its parts come together evenly, I still think that this is a solid effort. It's still a very entertaining, very thought provoking, memorable in some aspects. You know what I mean? And I would say that this is, like I said, this is not their best work, but I would still kind of have it up there as one of the more ambitious films that they've done. I would actually put this like right under Book of Eli, and I actually have like Menace above that. But I don't know if we're gonna get any more films from these guys. I really think that they should, you know what I mean? But for what they were going for, especially with the topics that they were addressing here, it's an admirable effort. I will give it that. So rated wise, I will give this a strong 3.5 out of like 4, man. I mean, even though it is flawed, you do see the effort, you do see the passion that was put into this too. And it's one of those shows that I feel like, if you haven't seen it in a long while, you'll look at it and be like, it's not perfect, but it has good things about it. It has some stuff in it that were really kind of ahead of its time, kind of, and this is something they addressed. It was really cool, man. You know what I mean? So, not saying any movie is perfect, but there were some good things about it that at least overall should not well at least give this film some sort of longevity. So if you haven't seen it in a while, guys, I say yeah, give it a look, man. Ricardo, last thoughts and rating on
Yeah.
Jefferson.
As I said, to me, thinking about the film, I more and more think about it. I felt they could have outright cut the heist film in this, the heist part. Like seriously, I'd stick to the character stuff because that's what the movie was like working, and they did us put in this heist thing that just felt really poorly thought out. Ultimately, either that or take out the heist a little better.
Yeah,
I I thought it was a solid character piece, great commentary on the American experience, especially in the context of the Vietnam War. A lot of that works. It's smarter than what I thought it was. In that way, it have a lot of little things to say. And to me, where the film could have been really interesting is if the character was like probably radicalized or something like that. Like, and then you do the crime aspect of it. So his it's not just a robbery. It's like some
right.
ideological reason or something like that. Like him being part of the Black Panthers, and then he become, and then that's where the story progress. I don't know.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
needed a lot of punching up, in my opinion. It's one of those scripts that need a lot of punching up in that way. I don't hate this movie. There's a lot of good, great moments, but it's stuff that just didn't gel together. And it's one of those typical sophomore effort problems, like Kevin Smith or something like that. Like Kevin Smith did Cooks, and then he had, I think Mallrats was the second film, right? And it was a
Yes, yeah, more rats, yeah.
way worse film, but it had a bigger budget, right?
Right.
It had the same thing. Nowhere near as good as Menace to Society, but still pretty good. for what it is. You know,
For what it
and
is, I agree.
yeah, and it's still fine. Like, but I don't think, but again, it had all these little small problems that are all bother me in terms of just stuff not gelling together, especially that last third of the film also. But yeah,
Yeah.
for me, just a good 7 out of 10, 6.5 out of 10 around that. Here's that.
Right. CC, final thoughts and rating on Dead Presidents.
Dead Presidents. So I enjoy this film, but as I said earlier, it's very rough around the edges. So like I as kind of taking the story structure of Roaring Twenties and updating it to the Black experience in America in the 1960s, replacing the Second World War with Vietnam. It's a really good idea, and I feel like
Right.
there are not nearly enough hybrid gangster war films or like crime
Right.
war films that like get into like that idea of like what happens when disenfranchised veterans get back from the war and the only thing they can do is turn to a life of crime, and suddenly all these things they learned in the war are being used, towards that crime. And in that regard, it's very interesting. And aside from Spike Lee's Da 5 Bloods and kind of Platoon, it's also one of the only Vietnam War films that specifically wants to look at the Vietnam War from the Black perspective. I
Right.
love the soundtrack, the performances. Like, you got a lot of character actors in this, and they're all giving really good performances. Everyone has a moment to shine. The style, like, one of the things I love about the Hughes brothers in general is that they are very stylized filmmakers. Like, they are definitely more on the like not afraid to go ham with style. It's one of the reasons why Book of Eli and Alpha works so well, even though Alpha is only Albert, not both of them. But and some of the movie's most stylized scenes were some of the ones that were the most effective. It definitely, like, its biggest problem is this script needed another 2 drafts, I would say.
Right.
Like,
Yeah, totally agree. Totally agree.
they really needed to sit down, go through a few more times.
Yeah.
Like, again, one of Cameron's best pieces of advice is if you need to make something tighter or make something shorter, just remove whole plot lines.
Yeah.
And like, there are plot lines in this you could remove if you had condensed Cuddy and Cowboy into the same character.
Right.
Like, you could have like that
Yes.
that would have been a great way to like tighten the movie and make it a little bit stronger. You could have condensed. You could also have condensed Cleon and Chris Tucker's character, I think.
Right.
Like,
Right.
like, you know what I mean? Like, there's a couple moments here and there where you could have
Yeah.
really tightened the film and made it really strong and like have that
Yeah.
little bit more impact. But that being said, it's very watchable. It's well worth recommending, and it at least gets you thinking about some of these ideas. At its weakest, it's just kind of this could have been better. At its best, it's like, oh, this is good stuff. So I always give it like kind of like a for me an 8 out of 10, which for me
Okay.
8 out of 10 for me is a movie I enjoy despite its problems. So
Right.
something like Roadhouse is a similar, for different reasons, but like
Uh,
Roadhouse category. But
the cult classic itself,
oh
Roadhouse.
yeah, cult classics is where I'm at. But yeah, kind of 8 out of 10. Like, it's got problems, but like, despite the problems, it doesn't rise above its problems like a 9 out of 10. But despite its problems, I enjoy it quite a bit. So yeah, well worth checking out if you saw if you've someone who saw Da 5 Bloods and thought there was like and wanted to know more about those kinds of experiences. This is a movie to check out, I would say.
Yeah, totally agree. All right. So with all that being said, CC, where can we find you online?
You can find me under CC Lilford on Facebook, on Spotify, Twitter, and Instagram. I am under CC the Martian. CC, that is CC _ the _ Martian. I make playlists. I write books. I also on my YouTube channel. That's where you'll find where I have some of my short films and other editing projects and things like that up there.
All right. You could find me on Twitter. You could find me at Bear Beat Bailey. On Instagram, you could find me at Bears Beats and Bailey. On Facebook, just look for my name, Matthew Bailey. That's a lot of Baileys I know. Where you find the link to this podcast as well as the other 25 episodes of Retrospect Reviews that we've done, including, Bears Beats and Bailey, which of course I do with Ricardo Medina. And speaking of Ricardo, where can we find you online, good sir?
At Armedi on Twitter. No, it's at Armedi on Twitter. At RMEDDY. Should find me there.
All right, so folks, yes, this was our retrospect review of Dead Presidents. If you have seen it, feel free to let us know what you thought about it. But if you haven't, I really do recommend you check it out, though. And if you haven't already, please check out the Five Bloods. We have a review of it. We're gonna put that at the very end of, the YouTube version of this review here. It's awesome. It's one of the best movies of 2020. Yeah, you really do need to check that out. And yeah, that's pretty much about it. So once again, guys, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, whatever this is. This was Matthew Bailey and CC Lilford. Thank you for coming through again.
Thank you. Always a pleasure to be on here.
Yes. And Ricardo Medina, thanks for coming through as well.
Right. Hello.
And we are signing off for another episode of Retrospect Reviews. So until the next one, take care, stay safe in and out. As a wise man once said, I'm out for presidents to represent me. I'm out for dead presidents to represent me. Take care. Peace.
And wear a mask.
Yes, and wear a mask, goddammit.